You got there's a USB here.
Going up and down, up and down.
Yeah. That's right. So I was going to do it. Yeah, ready to go. I did think I had. Jesus.
Yeah.
Frank, can you hear me? All right.
San Diego, it's time to fire it up. From the beaches to the ballparks, from the Gaslamp to North County, no one knows America's finest city like he does.
You can't just punt on a Manny Machado prime year.
He's a fourth-generation San Diegan, born and raised in the heart of this community. Passionate, opinionated, and always bringing you the real talk on your teams, your city, and everything in between.
Braden totally knows his stuff. He's ready for the next step. That guy is good.
Live and local, it's the Braden Surprenant Show.
But I think Braden's one of the up-and-coming young stars in the media game in San Diego.
Now, here's your host, Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? Thanks to all of you guys coming out to Dave & Buster's today. We'll be here live until 2 o'clock on the Braden Surprenant Show. And then, of course, Gwen and Chris will be taking over from 2 to 6. The Scraby Show will be on at nights. A little venture into Scrabistan later on tonight here for a lot of the games. Only got a couple of games that have already tipped off today in March Madness. Mississippi State and Baylor. Mississippi State's up 30-29 on Baylor, 3:39 to go in the first. And then Robert Morris and Alabama, 10:53 to go in the first half. Alabama's got a 19-13 lead. Got a lot to talk about on the show today here in America's finest city. Obviously going to start with UC San Diego last night. What a valiant effort against Michigan. They came down to the wire, and a magical season for Eric Olin and company over there in La Jolla. First ever year eligible for the NCAA tournament. Not only do they make it, but they go out there and really take a pretty decent Michigan team to the wire with 2 7-footers in the middle. I mean, I thought UCSD was going to be able to pull that one off last night. They had an ample of opportunity. Some of the foul calls didn't really go their way, but overall, there's not a lot to be too upset about when it comes to the way that they were able to play. And so it was fun to watch them. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We got a lot of Padres news yesterday when it came to roster decisions, when it came to injury updates, when it came to the way that everything was going to be put together in terms of the rotation. I mean, Pivetta yesterday shoved, and we've talked about it on the show a couple of times when it comes to spring training results. Like, you can't look too far into the spring training results and look at the stat sheet. It's about the process over results. But Pavetta's look great. And if you got some injuries you have to deal with when it comes to you, Darvish, and Matt Waldron's a little banged up to start the year, and you're really taking a chance on a guy like Kyle Hart early in the season, as well as Steven Kolick. I mean, if Pivetta could go out there and put up some good numbers, that might be the stopgap for the first couple of months of the season to get yourself rolling before hopefully Darvish comes back and Matt Waldron there in the number 5 spot in the rotation. But we do have some information to pass along when it comes to the pitching staff of the Padres. A lot of positive updates when it comes to injuries for them. Gavin Sheets added to the 40-man roster yesterday. I found that to be interesting. I mean, obviously he's one of those players that's battling for an opening day roster spot. And Gavin Sheets, when he's out there, if he makes the 40-man roster, I mean, he has to be on the 40-man roster in order to be on the opening day roster. So eventually that was going to have to be a decision that needed to be made. It's not a guarantee that he's on the opening day roster just because he does have options left. But in order to play in the big league level, he's got to be on the 40-man. And that's one step closer for him being on the 40-man or being in the major leagues and being on that opening day roster. I think Gavin Sheets is going to be on the opening day roster. I think that's why they put him on the 40-man yesterday. Obviously a move that was an inevitable move of starting Joe Musgrove on the 60-day IL. With him missing the majority of the season this year as he comes back from Tommy John surgery. But I like Gavin Sheets being on the 40-man roster. I think he's going to be a nice little piece for the Padres. Ben Higgins brought it up last week, and I totally agree about some of the numbers that Gavin Sheets can put up. Yeah, maybe he hasn't done it yet, but the more opportunities you get to play at the big league level and the more at-bats you get, the numbers are going to continue when you get consistent playing time. And I think he's going to get consistent playing time because he's a versatile player. He can play in the outfield. He can be a designated hitter. He can play first base, obviously. And we've talked about it before on this show where, maybe he platoons a little bit with the rise at first on days that Arise isn't the DH. And he could account for maybe 20 home runs, 25 home runs, and then Arise can get you the 5 or 6 that he usually gets, and now you're close to that 30 home run mark coming out of the first base position. So that's an interesting move yesterday. I think it tells you a little bit of where the Padres are going directionally when it comes to the opening day roster. But that being said, it's not a guarantee yet, just because he does have options left. But that position battles that are going on right now for the Padres, as we are now 6 days away from opening day, that's a fun race. In fact, Mike Schild even talked about it. We'll talk about that later on in the show. What to watch for today in March Madness. Got a lot of great games. I mean, this is one of the best sporting events every single year with guys going out and really playing for their basketball lives. We talked about it yesterday. I'll keep bringing it up. I mean, the reason why this tournament is so great is you got a lot of players that are playing basketball potentially for the final time of their career. I mean, these guys, you look at a lot of these players that play at the college level, it's a very small percentage that's going to go on to play in the NBA. Even draft picks, never make it out of the G League. And then I know they have opportunities to play internationally, but the reality is most of the seniors and guys that are out of eligibility, this will be the last time they play basketball in an organized setting ever again. And that's what they're playing for in these games. That's why this, even with NIL and with everything going on with college athletics, that's why this tournament has still been, so top notch and fun to watch. And you're going to see that throughout the rest of the afternoon. And then, of course, going into the weekend. I mean, these first 4 days are the best 4 days, in my opinion, in the NCAA tournament. Sweet 16 is kind of fun, but it's a little bit more fun when your teams are still around. Unfortunately for San Diego, we're now 0-3 in March Madness with the women's basketball for UCSD losing, the Aztecs losing, UCSD men's basketball losing last night. All we got left is the Aztecs women's basketball team. They tip off tomorrow down in Baton Rouge, but they're a huge underdog against LSU tomorrow night. So we'll see how they do. They had a great season, and we'll see if they can give LSU a run. But Kim Mulkey's team's always going to be ready to go for the NCAA tournament. Last time they were in the NCAA tournament, they were down in Baton Rouge too. So we'll get the update from Chris Ello when he comes back. He's going to be on the show a little bit today with Gwen and Chris. So he'll fill you in on some of that. They put out on MLB.com, bold predictions for the MLB season. And I thought some of them were kind of ridiculous and some of them were pretty good. We'll play a little buy or sell at that, talk some NFL free agency. And then coming up at 10:30, my guy Drake Hills will come in and join me. We'll talk a little soccer to finish up the show. San Diego FC's got a game tomorrow afternoon against Austin, so we'll get you taken care of on that. I want to thank everybody that wished me a happy birthday yesterday. I really appreciate that. I felt the love definitely on social media and in the chat. Great, great day yesterday after the show, and I thought I had a good show yesterday. It was fun. But after the show, I went out and enjoyed my 30th birthday. We went over to the top of the Hyatt. I don't know if you guys have been to the top of the Hyatt. I mean, it's open to the public. You can go up there and get a very expensive cocktail, but the views up there are awesome. It was a beautiful day. So went up there with my family, my parents, my brother, and had a nice little old fashioned to start the evening up there at the Hyatt, and then walked over to Cowboy Star and had dinner at Cowboy Star. It's a great place over in East Village. So I know they said they were going to be packed already on opening day, but what a great place, great time. Food was awesome. If you look at my Instagram story, The ribeye I ordered actually looked like a map of the United States, which is kind of funny. And then my buddy said, be careful eating the Florida part. I don't know what's going to happen after you eat the Florida part. So I try to cut around the state of Florida a little bit last night. But great service, great time. The drinks were good. The food was great company. And then as some people mentioned, I said it yesterday, I don't do cake on my birthday, even though I like cake. I'm more of I like chocolate and peanut butter. So Buckeye pie is my go-to on my birthday. People wanted to know what that looked like. I had it on my Instagram story. Delicious. So that's kind of the shakedown of yesterday. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out to Dave & Buster's today. Should be a fun time. If you're driving around in the area, you want to take work off a little bit early, get out here, watch the madness. We'll have tons of games on throughout the entire morning and afternoon. We're here till 7 o'clock tonight with Matt Scraby holding it down, to finish out the show. Got a lot of great games to play. I know it's kind of a slow build today on a March Madness day, trying to get your work in as much as possible. Got a Pop-A-Shot basketball contest here that you can participate in. I think win some prizes here with 97.3 The Fan. I think our top score today so far is 60. So if you could beat 60, you're going to be in the lead. And I'll get some more information for that as much as possible. There's also raffle prizes that you can win. So going to be a fun time here at Dave & Buster's for anybody that wants to swing by, watch some college basketball. We got a breakfast burrito station here you can participate in, mimosas, deals on beers, and everything like that. Should be a really fun time. We got Frank Marchese joining us back in studio throughout the entire day. We're going to bring Frank on in a couple of times today to go through some of the buy or sell and to go through the sports thread coming up at 11:35. I heard Ben and Woods talk about it, and I wanted to dive into this because as a high school football coach in town, that deal that Mater Dei made is fascinating to me. I mean, absolutely fascinating to the point I was like, now, maybe we should pick this up. Maybe we should go call this company and see if they can help us out. But a 10-year, 7-figure deal for a high school team for their media rights is, to me, crazy. But at the same time, that's kind of the direction of where sports is going right now. So I want to dive into that later on in the show. I mean, that's insane. I mean, that was just a crazy story that popped up on my feed last night, and I'm glad Ben and Woods talked about it. And just to answer their question, are they more in football? Ain't nobody beating Mater Dei. I'm just in anywhere. And Paul was talking about they're really good in California. They beat everybody. They went down to Texas a couple of years ago and played Duncanville, who was one of the best teams in the state of Texas. They beat them 42-0. It wasn't even a contest. They go out and play IMG Academy, and they wipe the floor with them. The only ones that give them a little bit of competition is St. John Bosco up there in the Trinity League. But aside from that, I mean, it's Mater Dei. They're the class of high school football right now in really the United States. And to be honest, I mean, the best football league in all of high school football in the entire United States is in Orange County in the Trinity League. You can talk about Texas football and Florida high school football and everything like that. They don't hang with the teams from the Trinity League in Orange County. Now, whether or not all those kids are from Orange County is a different story, but that's the way things are right now in high school football. I talked about it already. We're gonna go back into the UCSD game last night. Why it's such a big deal for the Tritons, and what a great effort. I'm not a big moral victory kind of person because I don't think there's a moral victory in sports. Man, you either win or you lose, and they lost last night, but still a great season. We'll talk about what went wrong for them and what went right in their game yesterday against Michigan. Plus, in a little bit after that, we'll talk about Gavin Sheets being added to the 40-man roster and hear what he had to say to the media about being added to the 40-man roster. Just getting underway here. We're at Dave & Buster's, Braden Surprenant Show. When we come back, we'll talk a little UCSD hoops right here on 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're out here live at Dave & Buster's in Mission Valley. Come by, have a nice time. Got all the games on for March Madness today. We'll keep you updated on those throughout the afternoon and obviously throughout the morning and afternoon. As of right now, Baylor up 37-32 on Mississippi State, 12:41 to go in the second half. And finishing up the first half, it's Alabama and Robert Morris. Alabama up 34-29 on the Robert Morris Colonials with 3:22 to go in the first half. Next game on the docket, the Lipscomb Bisons are taking on the Iowa State Cyclones at 10:30. That game will be on TNT. And then Colorado State is playing Memphis coming up at 11 a.m. How many Aztec fans are rooting for Colorado State today? I'm curious. I have to know. And this is today's Braden Surprenant Show Do You Know Ball question of the day. You can check it out on the poll, on Twitter, on X, at 97.3 The Fan SD, at B_SURP. Because I had my buddy Mike just showed up. He went to UC Irvine, and he is anti, the rivals in the Big West. In fact, he was rooting for Michigan last night the entire night, which is his prerogative. That's fine. He's not a believer in rooting for his conference rival in the NCAA tournament. So the question of the day, can you root for your conference rival or your conference foes in the NCAA tournament? I personally don't mind doing that. My school's in the Big 12 with TCU. I absolutely can't stand Baylor or Texas Tech or, Oklahoma State. I mean, name the team. But I tell you what, I don't mind them winning. It makes us look a little bit better in the NCAA tournament. People have a different opinion than that. Aztec fans, you rooting for New Mexico today? I bet, New Mexico's a little bit different. I don't think a lot of Aztec fans like New Mexico too much. But, it helps the conference out a little bit, or at least for the next week or so, or the next year or so before they bail to go to the Pac-12. But what's your take on that? That's our Do You Know Ball question of the day. 8 people have already voted. Sorry. Through the roof, heck no. The rivalries run deeper than the conference pride. Not a lot of SEC fans out there, I guess. So I don't mind it. In professional sports, it doesn't really matter to me. Like in professional sports, I'll never root for the Dodgers. But in college sports, I think it's a little bit different. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Here at Dave & Buster's. I wanted to talk about the Tritons game last night. Again, UCSD, way smaller than Michigan in terms of their overall size. Michigan had a couple of 7-footers that obviously was a problem to deal with. Tate Jones got in trouble early in the game. In fact, he ends up fouling out of the contest. And so, UCSD was a little bit behind the 8 ball there late. They made it close. They ended up tying the game with under 3 to go, end up losing by 3. Magai had 25 points for UCSD. And an overall just, a gutty performance for the Tritons in what was a big season for them. A very magical year for UCSD. They finished the season with 30 wins. They go 30-5 in their first year of eligibility for the NCAA tournament. And it's great to see another one of those programs in town, another D1 program in town going out there and competing at a high level. And, we'll see where the narrative goes with UCSD in terms of the future. And how they work against San Diego State. I don't think they're going to be in a position. And it's funny, my boss, Adam, who's been helping us out on the show, he brought up the question, if UCSD would have won last night or if they made it to the Sweet 16, but with their trajectory of success that they have had in recent success, and it's only been like a year. It's only been really a couple of years of them being in D1, but only a year in terms of finally being eligible for the NCAA tournament. Can UCSD push San Diego State a little bit here in town about being a premier basketball program? I think it's going to take a lot more time. I think it's going to take a lot more years of work in order to do that. And they've had a successful season this year, but, who knows if they're going to be able to keep it up. I think they can in this day and age of college athletics. We talked about it yesterday. I asked the question to a lot of people, what is the major similarity that UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara have, 2 schools that dominate the Big West in most sports? The thing that they have in common is they have a desirable location to live in. They both are by the beach. UC Irvine's by Newport Beach. That's very close. In fact, most of the athletes for UC Irvine live in Newport Beach. Same thing with Santa Barbara. It's by the beach. Try recruiting a bunch of 18-year-olds to go to Cal State Bakersfield. And not only are their programs are a little bit down anyway, but the facilities are not the same, and you got to go live in Bakersfield. So obviously not necessarily a premier player in college athletics in the Big West. But for UC San Diego, being right there in La Jolla, being in America's finest city, got a lot of different things to do here in town. It's for sure a top spot to be. And so I think they can keep up the success. Again, with basketball, the good thing for them is it doesn't take a lot of players to be good. And then the other thing with UCSD is they don't have to worry about paying for football. And I'm a big football guy, obviously. I love schools that have football. I'm a big advocate for the sport. But that being said, not all schools need to have football. You see Gonzaga. Gonzaga's got a lot of success, and a lot of success for their school has come from men's basketball, and they don't have a football team. They don't need it. They can pump their energy and all their resources into men's basketball. They can still collect a lot of money in every round that they advance in the NCAA tournament. And what that basketball program has done for the school of Gonzaga, it is risen the tides of all the other programs there up there in Spokane. And that's a non-desirable place to be in, Spokane, Washington. So overall last night, I think UCSD had a great season. You saw that Ball Arena was definitely all backing UCSD. They won that neutral fan battle between them and Michigan. The underdog usually does it as long as they keep things close. And, good performances last night. McGuy, 25 points. Kapik had 15. Hayden Gray had 10. It just looked like a lot of times with UCSD, early on in the contest, it looked like they're a little nervous about being on the big stage. Some of them played in D2, but, the D1 NCAA tournament against a school like Michigan, who has a lot of history in the NCAA tournament and advancing in the NCAA tournament, that's a tough draw to get, in the first round. Now, that Michigan team is nowhere near as good as the Michigan teams they've had in the past. They're a 5 seed, but they're probably seeded a little bit higher than they needed to be. I think the 7-footers definitely play a big factor in that, but you got to give Eric Olin and the staff credit about what they accomplished this year for UCSD. I think the way that you look at the NCAA tournament and just in yesterday in general, a lot of the SEC schools near the bottom half, were not that impressive. Texas was okay. They weren't super impressive against Xavier. Missouri wasn't that impressive against Drake. And you're talking about a conference that even though, I know they did really well in the non-conference, but with the way that they, had 14 of their 16 teams in the NCAA tournament, it's just way too many teams for a conference that had, some of those teams going in at 6-12 in conference play. We'll see what Oklahoma does later on, on the afternoon. But Oklahoma, they went 6-12 in the SEC. I think there's some better teams out there that might not get the benefit of the doubt because they play in a one-bid league. And I think you saw that with Irvine and UCSD this season. You're telling me that, Irvine couldn't, do what Missouri did yesterday against Drake? I just think it's the way the tournament is evolving and everything like that, and the more Power 4 schools getting put in there, I think is, obviously changes things a bit. So we got a lot of stuff to give away here at Dave & Buster's. We got great raffle items today. Throughout the day, if you show up, get a raffle ticket. You can win an opportunity to go out and get some free play with all the games here at Dave & Buster's. They got deals on mimosas. They got deals on beer throughout the morning and afternoon. They got a breakfast burrito station going on that I've seen a lot of our patrons here consuming. It looks like looks pretty good to me. You can play the Pop-A-Shot contest. Top score right now is 60. So get out here to Dave & Buster's. We're going to be here till 2 o'clock, or at least I'll be here till 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris will take over at 2. Matt Scraby holding it down from 6 to 7. Had some good Padres news coming out of Padres camp. New member of the 40-man roster, what it means for the opening day roster. We'll talk about it when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, live from Dave & Buster's on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, broadcasting live at Dave & Buster's out here in Mission Valley, 2931. Got to get the address back on this thing. We are at 2931 Camino del Rio North today, all day, for your favorite fan talk shows. Ben Woods led things off today. Braden Surprenant Show, myself, here from 10 to about 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris takes over at 2 o'clock, and then it's the Matt Scraby Show from 6 to 7. That's going to be a prime time to be down here at Dave & Buster's. Got a lot of basketball going on throughout the day. Got some updates for you. Baylor and Mississippi State. Baylor's up 41-34 on Mississippi State, 17-42 to go in the second half. As for the other game in action, they are at halftime, and that's the worst part, like the early slate when you get the two early halftime games. Alabama is up on Robert Morris, the Colonials, 40-36 at halftime. That game is on True TV. Other game that just tipped off is Iowa State and Lipscomb. Iowa State up 6-0 on Lipscomb, 17-10 to go in the first. And then coming up at 11 a.m., Colorado State and Memphis. A lot of people have picked Colorado State as kind of that upset pick for their brackets, but you're starting to find out the new transition with the big upset seed is the 11 seeds seem to be a little bit more of an upset pick than the 12 seeds in the last couple of NCAA tournaments. So we'll see what Colorado State has. I think a lot of people thought Memphis was ranked a little bit too high and got too high of a seed at 5, but Colorado State playing red hot right now. See if the Mountain West can get a victory aside from San Diego State. We mentioned the poll of the day. Can you root for your conference foes, the NCAA tournament? Ben Higgins said absolutely not. And he said he likes the little bit of the fact that the Aztecs are the only team right now in the Mountain West to win NCAA tournament games. I have to agree with Ben on that. That is kind of a nice thing to have. I mean, I don't know if they're going to hang the banner at Viejas Arena for that anytime soon. Only Mountain West school to win an NCAA tournament game in the last 3 years. But it is a nice little feather in the cap for a program like San Diego State. And we'll see what happens in the new Pac-12 in the next couple of years or so. I heard that TV contract should be coming out soon. We haven't heard any new developments on that, though, since. So we'll see what happens with that particular deal. Talk Padres baseball. We got a lot of Padres news that came out this week, or should I say really last night. I mean, I think the fact that the game was a night game, kind of set the tone to just have a bunch of news come out right during Gwen and Chris. But one of the big news stories, and, it's big and it's not at the same time because it doesn't mean that Gavin Sheets is on the opening day roster. It definitely gives you a sense that he probably will be, but there's no guarantee because he still has options left. But it was announced yesterday in a roster move, Joe Musgrove, which was a procedural move, obviously, to put him on the 60-day IL. He's going to miss most of 2025, if not all of 2025, with an injury, recovering from Tommy John surgery. He goes on the 60-day IL, and Gavin Sheets gets placed on the 40-man roster. Here's what Mike Schilt had to say about Gavin Sheets being added to the 40-man roster.
I think there's still some decisions to be made, but maybe one of them was made today with the addition of Gavin Sheets to the 40-man roster. What can you share with us about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's more of AJ's purview, but, clearly, Gavin came in and is, as expected, good player, right? And so some reason he wasn't on a 40-man, and we were able to get him in on a non-roster invite, and he's more than earned his opportunity to be on the 40-man roster, and I'm excited, and I know he is.
How's the competition going on still for those final rosters?
A lot of competition. Me and AJ met this morning with Josh Stein and, talked for about over an hour and a half, and there's a lot of different paths. Decisions are getting closer, and obviously the days are going by, but, we still have 5 days of camp. Clearly, probably in the next 3 or 4 days, look to have this thing more or less wrapped up, but there's some really hard decisions to make, and there's a path for, a lot of different guys on this club.
A lot of guys are doing really well to make the decision more difficult. It looks like.
The guys are doing great. The position player, it's his, Peter Somerville, one of our staff members, asked me today, and it was a good question I never really thought about, but this is the most competitive position player camp I've ever had at the end of a camp. Usually it comes down to like picking your 26th guy between a guy or 2 or 3. And now we've got, legitimately 10 guys for, 4 or 5 spots.
That's Mike Schilt talking with the media about Gavin Sheets being a member of the 40-man roster now. That's one of the hurdles that he needed to climb in order to make that opening day roster. And now when you start looking at a lot of these position battles, there's a handful of players for the Padres that aren't on the 40-man roster, which means you got to take somebody off the 40-man roster or put somebody on the injured list or 60-day injured list in order to get these players on the 40-man roster to make them eligible for the big league club. And, there's players like Martin Maldonado, who's not on the 40-man roster. Jose Iglesias is currently not on the 40-man roster. All these, most of these minor league camp invites are not on the 40-man roster. That's a big move that needs to be made because, again, you're either taking somebody off the roster or you're putting somebody on the injured list. So that's one big step for Gavin Sheets. And I think Gavin Sheets, as being a member of the Padres, I think it's a good pickup for the Padres. I think he's earned his spot with spring training. You don't want to evaluate spring training stats too much, but I think obviously the way that he has performed and the ability for him to use power and be that left-handed bat off the bench, to be that designated hitter on select days, his versatility of being an outfielder and being able to be an infielder, I think is a huge, huge thing for Gavin Sheets. I really like the Padres having him on this team. I think it's a nice little pickup. And you talk about guys like Jason Hayward and Connor Joe and some of the ones that, you added during the offseason. Again, a lot of fringe moves, a lot of moves on the fringes for the Padres. That's upset a lot of people in our chat, the last couple of months about the Padres compared to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And they're like, oh, well, the Dodgers, shut out the Padres for 24 straight innings and they won the World Series and they went out and spent a bunch of money. You can still be able to compete with with that team, just adding on the margins. I mean, the Padres spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money on players in previous years. That money is already spent, and this is the roster that they have. And we talked about the benefits of that from a business perspective as well as a on-field perspective. But the reality is that the Dodgers kind of were adding some pieces that were now added to their core, and you have to compare the same kind of personnel between LA and San Diego if that's what you want to go with. And that those are players like, a Kike Hernandez, right, being added to the Dodgers. I mean, that's the kind of side moves that they made as well. It's a little bit different in comparison. I also mentioned that the fact that the Dodgers are already 2-0 and a game in the standings up on the Padres, that should be good news to Padres fans. Stop worrying about them because you don't have to worry about them this year anyway. You're not winning the division, all right? Don't think about winning the division. If you win the division, great. If you're in the division conversation, awesome. But the reality is you're competing against 6 teams, and you got to be better than 3 of them. 6 teams, you got to be better than 3 of them. You're competing against the Mets. You're competing against the Phillies. You're competing against the Giants. You're competing against the Diamondbacks. You're competing against the Cubs. And you're competing against the Atlanta Braves. You got to be better than 3 of those teams. That's it. I mean, that's where you're at right now. You can play the game, start matching up the Padres. I like the way they look against a lot of those particular teams. I mean, if you want to continue to compare yourself to the top team in the league, that's fine. But that's not what you're trying to accomplish at the end of the season. You're going to get them in a best-of-5 series. You got to get them in a best-of-5 series. Gavin Sheets was asked about making the 40-man roster and all that hard work that he has put together and everything like that. Here's Gavin Sheets with the media yesterday.
You had a pretty solid spring. How would you kind of react to the news that you had your contract selected today?
Yeah, it's exciting. That was obviously the goal I had when I got here, and to get notified by the front office and everything, it feels good. It's the hard work that was put in, and just excited about the opportunity to be here and to have the contract selected.
Have they told you if you'll be on the roster, or is that something that comes later?
I think that's something that'll all come going forward. But no, obviously that was the initial news was just getting on the 40-man, getting on the roster, and just excited to have that news.
And how exciting is it to kind of be a part of this group, knowing the role that you could fill? And what
that's why I came here. That's why I wanted to be here. You look around this clubhouse and you look around what this team has, and the excitement of last year, and obviously what we want to build on. And it feels good to start using the word we, and look at what's ahead, and be a part of this.
When did they tell you?
I was notified this morning when everything was the moves were made and everything. So no, it's exciting.
Who did you share the news with first?
Family, obviously. Family, my wife. Obviously talked to my agent as well, and he notified me with some things. And but yeah, just letting the family know that we're selected and can start getting excited for the season.
What were some of the reactions that you got from your family?
Just excitement. Haven't been in this position the last couple of years. Everything's been, kind of different spring training, coming in to compete for a spot, compete for a job on the team. And so it feels good.
How much have you enjoyed you've talked a little bit about working with the hitting group here and kind of making some tweaks, some changes. Like, what's that process been like for you?
It's been incredible. Obviously just from the results as of late, but just working with these guys and buying into what they were doing from day one. I know even when I was scuffing a little bit at the plate, just buying into what they were doing, knowing that at the end of the day, that's what was going to get me to the next level. And, obviously seeing the results on the field is awesome, but, I just knew the work we were putting in and I was buying into what they were teaching. And so it's been fun to see this day come and just relying on these guys.
You've been going pretty well for a few weeks now, but when you homered off Luis Castillo the other day, pitcher of his caliber, even though it's spring, what did that tell you about where you are?
Yeah, and it was a breaking ball down, which is, some of the work that we've been doing. So obviously the other ones have been some high heaters and stuff. And so to get a breaking ball down and just the work that we've been doing behind the scenes on pitches like that and some of the mechanical changes that we made to be able to handle those pitches. So that was, regardless of who it was, but to get that pitch and be able to put that swing on it, that was the most rewarding part.
Breaking balls down, were they a focus for you coming into camp?
Yeah, just kind of the mechanical move you had to make to them, staying in the zone, being athletic as a hitter, getting into my legs a little bit more with better posture, and to see it come in that moment with a 2-strike count, that was awesome.
Gavin Sheets talking with the media about making the team to an extent, making the 40-man roster. Obviously, a big goal for him. He went and told his family afterwards, and you've been hearing a lot of the correct things from a lot of Padres players in the last couple of weeks, and camp. I mean, they're all saying the right things. I like the veteran leadership of this team. I like it to mix with the young players that they have. And, I think a lot of different, fans are, upset about not bringing in some of the top echelon players. Again, you had the money and spent it on previous years. And, that's the core that you wanted to put together. And that's the core that they have. And they're adding some veteran leadership on the sides. I mean, you could talk about, a lot of these players that, have some question marks. And, earlier this week in the article from Kevin Acee talking about Yuli Gurriel potentially being a shoo-in for the team, he's 40 years old. We'll see what he's got. But, one of those veteran players that has experience, a Jason Hayward type player. I like everything that Jason Hayward has started to say throughout camp. But, those two players in particular really haven't done anything in the big leagues from a hitting standpoint in the last couple of years. And you're really taking a chance on them. I mean, you have to do that sometimes when it comes to building a roster. You have to take chances on guys that you normally wouldn't because of where you're at in terms of money and in terms of roster construction and everything like that. So, I like the mental makeup. I like the message coming out of Padres camp. It's all those things that, the Padres have done in terms of team building and everything that I think a lot of, organizations really lack. I mean, these are some of the things that Manny Machado was asked about years ago, in which he responded with like, what are we, a college team? But now I think they're starting to get it. I think they're starting to create that kind of culture and everything with the Padres. I'm excited for the season. We're 6 days away from opening day. Roster decisions obviously hinging on a lot of different games this weekend for the Padres. They'll have a couple of days off next week before they open up against the Atlanta Braves. And, Atlanta put out really the way that they're lining up this weekend, probably giving you an idea of what you're going to see out of the Braves in the first 3 games of the 4-game series. They've already announced Chris Sale to be the opening day starter, but they're going to go Sale, Lopez, Schwellenbach for the first 3 games, 1, 2, 3 against the San Diego Padres, which will probably be against Michael King, Dylan Cease, and right now looking like Nick Pivetta more so than maybe you, Darvish, with obviously the little bit of a setback that he has had in camp. Now, he has been throwing. He played catch a couple of days ago. He played catch again yesterday. We'll see what the updates are on Darvish. I wouldn't hold my breath on him being available to pitch in that first series or the first couple of series. So we'll see how that plays out. Matt Waldron, we have an injury update on him that we'll get to later on in the second hour. We also have injury updates on Brian Hoeing and Sean Reynolds. Brian Hoeing was throwing. That's good news for the San Diego Padres. Sean Reynolds out of a boot, also good news. We'll talk about that later in the show. Coming up in the next hour, we'll break down what we could take away from last night's spring training game. Jason Hayward had a big knock yesterday. Pivetta has looked great. I mean, Nick Pivetta has looked great in a Padres uniform. Again, evaluate spring training stats like you will. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But, he's put together some really good outings so far for the Padres. And he's going to be in a good spot, I think, to pitch at the beginning part of the season. We're going to go through some buy or sell bold predictions for the MLB season. You're not going to – I can't believe the bold prediction they had for the World Series champion this year. I mean, it's bold. I can tell you that. I just, interesting from MLB.com. And then one bold prediction that they had that affects the Padres maybe a little negatively. But that's all coming up in the next hour. We're here live at Dave & Buster's. We got the Papa Shot competition going on. And right now, it looks like the leading score is 36 points. Tony's got 36 points on the what they call the NBA competition over there in the corner for the Papa Shot. You can come out and participate in the basketball shooting contest. We got tons of raffle items to give away. I'll be giving away a Robert Suarez signed baseball here for anybody that comes out. You can enter yourself an opportunity to win that via the raffle. Just got to sign up with Riley and Hamby here when you get to Dave & Buster's. When you walk in, we're to the left, bunch of big screen TVs. They got the breakfast burrito station going. Now Adam's going on the Papa Shot right now. We'll see how many points he gets in the next 60 seconds or so. He's off to an 8-point lead, but up to 10, working through. And we'll let you know how Adam does on the Papa Shot. I'd flip the camera around, but I don't know. I do a little camera work too. So that's what we got going on here at Dave & Buster's. Again, should be a fun time. We'll be here until 2 o'clock, and then Gwen and Chris will take over from 2 o'clock to 2 to 6, and then Matt Scraby on from 6 to 7 to wrap up the day at Dave & Buster's. In terms of March Madness, we got some scores out there, and Alabama only up 4 at halftime against Robert Morris on True TV. Baylor at 57-46 on Mississippi State. Iowa State leads Lipscomb 27-16. Those are the 3 games that are currently in action right now in the NCAA tournament. Colorado State and Memphis will get underway at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Colorado State is favored by 1.5. And the next 50 minutes after that, it will be Mount St. Mary's and Duke. Get to see how good Cooper Flagg is right now and how healthy he is for the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, Duke is my pick to win the NCAA tournament. They got the best player on the best team. I think that's kind of a shoo-in usually for the NCAA tournament, but we'll see what Duke does. Florida, who's going to play later on today as well, they are another team that I think can go out there and win the NCAA tournament. Hopefully everybody's brackets are doing all right. I ended up doing pretty well yesterday in the bracket picks. Only missed a couple. Didn't lose anybody in my Sweet 16. And we'll keep you updated on the NCAA tournament as that plays out as well. Got a lot of stuff that we could take away from yesterday's spring training game for the San Diego Padres, more so than just the stats. And we're going to talk about that in the next hour when it comes to the Padres and spring training. I mean, not only a handful of games left to play in Peoria. They play the Cubs today coming up at 1:05 Pacific time. We'll see an outing of Michael King today for San Diego. They've improved their standings at 10-16. I know John Heyman was worried about that yesterday, talking about how the Padres think they could be they think they could compete for a playoff spot. I mean, they're doing awful right now in spring training, like we particularly care. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. As we wrapping up the first hour here at Dave & Buster's. Want to mention baseball coverage on 97 through the Fan, presented by T-Mobile. Head to T-Mobile.com and get a great deal on iPhone 16 Pro. T-Mobile providing our baseball coverage on 97.3 the Fan. You can join the show today. Again, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. But coming up next, we'll hear from Nick Pivetta and how he felt in the outing. And the other thing we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about Jason Hayward. I mean, Jason Hayward had a good day yesterday. Maybe he's starting to hit his stride a little bit, but it's looking like it's going to be a couple platoon spots for the Padres in different positions. At first base, at left field. We'll see what the fifth spot in the rotation is going to look like, although that's more looking like the fourth and fifth spot in the rotation for the San Diego Padres. We'll talk about what Nick Pivetta brings to that San Diego Padres rotation and really dive into some Padres baseball here in the next hour. Injury updates, and then Frank Marchese will jump on and give us some bold predictions for the MLB season. Just getting started here at Dave & Buster's, 1 hour down. We'll be back with some more Padres talk for you and talk a little bit about what we can get away from last night's spring training game. Adam hit 36 points on the NBA competition. Ben Higgins is about to go next. We'll see how they do. I'll get you the update when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Hour number two of the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. This hour of 97.3 The Fan is brought to you by Frozen Ropes San Diego. Hey, parents, here's a message from Coach Kurt at Frozen Ropes. Is your child 6 to 12 years old? Their baseball summer league is the perfect fit for your players. Starting June 16th through August 17th, Summer League includes 8 practices, 8 games. Register by March 31st and save $100. Go to SanDiegoFrozenRopes.com. So we got the Papa Shot competition right now going on at Dave & Buster's. Again, Braden Surprenant Show live at Dave & Buster's. They're doing a one of those Papa Shot games. It's called NBA Hoops, so they're calling it the NBA competition, even though it's college basketball day today. And they got the high score right now at 36 points, which is Adam Klug tied with one of our loyal listeners and Tony. Those are the two highest right now today for Papa Shot. So if you want to come out and hang out with us today at Dave & Buster's. We will be here, throughout the afternoon. We'll be here this evening with Gwen and Chris, and then the Matt Scraby Show. We're here at 2931. I keep losing the address on this place, but I'll look it up here in a second. But we're out here in the Mission Valley, Dave & Buster's. Again, we're going to be here throughout the entire day. College basketball is on all the TVs. Come out, play some games, have some drink specials. It's a great time here for everybody. And again, get off work a little bit early today to hang out with us. I know not a lot of work's getting done today with the NCAA tournament being on, but we're here at 2931 Camino del Rio North here in Mission Valley. We'll be here throughout the day talking Padres baseball, talking NCAA tournament, and everything in between. So really appreciate everybody that's already come out and spent time with Ben and Woods, or spending time today with me. A little early lunch today here at 11 o'clock, but it's going to be a fun time throughout the rest of the afternoon. I'll be here a little bit later, too, after the show, hanging out, playing games and stuff like that. So if you want to come by and say hi, I would love to meet a lot of you guys out there in San Diego. We're going to talk some Padres baseball here. I do want to get you updated again, continual updates with the NCAA tournament. It's 60-52 in favor of Baylor right now, 7:26 to go in that contest in the East region. Alabama has their hands full with Robert Morris right now, 51-45 as they start the second half. They're under 15 minutes to go in the second half. Alabama with a 6-point lead on the Colonials. And that's now a 5-point lead as it's 51-46. And that's one to watch for. Alabama, 2 seed, Robert Morris at 15. One of my friends, his Alabama fan at halftime, already said they're going to lose. So we'll see how confident Alabama fans are in their game right now. Lipscomb and Iowa State. Iowa State out of the Big 12 Conference handling business right now against the Bison. There's 5 minutes to go in the first half. It's 33-19 in favor of Iowa State. And then Colorado State and Memphis just tipped off, and they're tied at 2 as we're at 18 minutes to go in the first half. Got a lot of Padres news, as mentioned. We do want to talk about yesterday's game a little bit in spring training. Padres were able to get a victory yesterday, improved to 10 wins on the season in spring training. Apparently that matters to guys like John Heyman. I don't think it really matters that much. But he had a really good performance yesterday out of some Padres players, specifically, and a guy like Nick Pivetta. And then, of course, Jason Hayward had a good showing as well. We got the sound from Mike Schilt after the game yesterday that we want to get to here on the Braden Surprenant Show, talking about Nick Pivetta and talking a little bit about Jason Hayward. So when we can get that up, Frank, we'll be good to go with that. But yesterday's game, again, looking at the way that spring training has gone, and I've said it enough about spring training results. You can't look at it too much because you got guys like Luis Ariz. He's hitting 395. He usually does that anyway. And you got guys like Manny Machado hitting 148. I mean, there's only so much you can really look into overall spring training stats. I'm just glad we're done with this in the next couple of days or so as we get you ready for opening day. Ariz up to 395 now on his average. Tatis doing okay. Jose Iglesias, again, hitting to where his career numbers are usually at. And you start looking at this roster construction and this position battles that the Padres are putting together. And it's been a good competition. I mean, hopefully Jake Cronenworth continued to swing a hot bat. He's hitting .313 right now in spring training. Again, take it for what it's worth. I mean, we could sit here and just be like, offensively, when things are good, count it as a stat, and when they're not, we just don't pay attention to spring training results. But I like to see what some of these guys could do. I'm excited we can finally start playing some good ball. Big hit yesterday for Jason Hayward. He was able to drive in 3 runs. With his triple yesterday in the game against the Texas Rangers. And, the guy like Jason Hayward, if he could just hit a little bit better than he did last year with the way he is defensively and the veteran leadership, there's a spot for him on this team. I mean, I know they gave him about $1 million. So, you have a little bit of an investment in there. And I understand a lot of fans. I've seen it on social media. And if you haven't followed me yet on social media, give me a follow at @B_SURP, at BSURP on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. We post a lot of content on there. We had some stuff on kind of the roster construction, everything like that. Again, you can give me a follow. If you haven't done so already on the YouTube page, give me a like. For the 84 of you that are on YouTube. Really appreciate you guys tuning in as well. Frank found the Pivetta sound. We're going to get to that right now. As Nick Pivetta did really well yesterday for the Padres. He went 5 innings, no runs, 1 hit, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Pivetta looks like he's ready to go for the season, and that should be a pretty good game on that Saturday with Nick Pivetta and Schwellenbach for Atlanta. Should be a good matchup coming up next week. So we'll see what we got. But here's Nick Pivetta after his outing and what he's been feeling so far in camp.
Good. I felt good. Diaz, he was really good tonight behind the plate for me. He had a really good understanding of the game plan, and I was kind of able to feed off him and just do my thing.
How has that relationship kind of built this spring?
It's been great. I think it's obviously it's a hard relationship to build in such a short time, but I think as the season goes on, it's been really good.
Getting as many pitches as you did, getting through the 5 innings. I mean, what's left? You probably have something on the backfield just to.
I believe I have one more start and then off to San Diego. Yeah.
This is about where you wanted to be, right?
Yeah, I feel good. Happy with the way I threw. Happy with the pitches that I got to. Limited the walks and limited damage.
Do you taper it down for the next one?
No,
you don't.
No, 100%. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
That's Nick Pivetta talking with the media about his outing. I mean, he's got one more start he's got to make, and then he's off to San Diego. He feels good where he's at right now. He looks good. That's a big pickup, I think, for the Padres this year. That might be the big X factor. We talked about the fill in the blank earlier in the show last week. This year's Michael King is. This year's Jerickson Profar is. A guy like Nick Pivetta, I mean, he could be that pitcher that the Padres really need, that can rely on in the middle of their rotation. That gets him through the season. The way that his veteran presence and his ability to go out there and eat a lot of innings and big strikeout guy. Obviously, he gives up a lot of home runs, which is a big problem for him. But I think with Nick Pivetta working with Ruben Niebla, I think the Padres are set up for success in that rotation. The thing that is obviously difficult is having to deal with the injuries right now. At the end of camp, Darvish being banged up definitely does not help out too much for the Padres. And the thing is as long as you can come back and pitch at some time this season, I'd rather have him healthy and ready to go for the second half of the season more than the beginning part anyway. I think you got enough young arms that kind of bridge the gap early in the year before you get to, the halfway point and on. I'm really curious to see what they do at the trade deadline if they are leading. I mean, I think everybody knows what the plan is, that the Padres are not in the race at the trade deadline. They got a lot of pieces that they could ship off and save some money. But what happens if they are at the trade deadline and they do have contentions and they are part of, contending for division and a wild card? I think that changes things a little bit. Mike Schilt, this is what he had to say about yesterday's outing for Nick Pivetta and Jason Hayward's big knock.
What did you think of Nick tonight? Kind of the way he was able to navigate those 5 innings.
I thought Nick was lights out, man. I thought he was fantastic. I mean, a lot of light to the fastball. Curveballs, unbelievable. Slider was good. I thought he was tremendous. Tempo was good. A couple 2 out, walks or But otherwise, he was lights out. He was really, really good.
What have you learned about him this spring that maybe you didn't know before having him on your team?
Actually, quite a bit because I just, we faced him last year in Boston, and I just haven't come across him a ton over the years. But been very, very, very pleased. Competitive spirit's very high. Goes out after guys. Stuff's really good. Comes out good. Work ethic good. He's got it really hard for wanting to be successful. So, he's in a good spot. We're in a good spot with him.
What kind of receptiveness has he had to Ruben, or any suggestions have come from the pitching staff?
Yeah, I've been very pleased with that. We've got a very good pitching program with Ruben at the helm, and it's one of those deals where he comes in with history and success, and we acquire him for a reason, and we partner like we do with all our players and share thoughts about, hey, what are you doing? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then we work together to go work on it in the game. And, he's been receptive, and Ruben, Fritzy, and, the pitching guys have been really good with figuring out how to best help him. And it's a good marriage. The other starters have been good with him too, about helping indoctrinate him into how we do things and how we prepare. And so it's a team effort that really is good to see.
What do you think of Jason Hayward's triple in the second inning?
It was good. It was a big blow. I mean, it was, a big part of the game. Down the line, it was good for Jason to get the head out of him, get that, clear the bases. It was a really nice stroke.
What's generally been your impression of his spring Hayward's?
Yeah, as a veteran guy, so these guys that have time in the game, they figure out how to get ready for a season, and so he's gone out and been able to take good bats, as the spring's progressed for the most part, and get ready to go. But I think overall he's kind of getting his way into the season, working towards that.
That's Mike Schilt talking about yesterday's performances. We do have some updates on Darvish and the starting rotation. Some new updates coming out of Peoria. We will tell you what the deal is with you and what we got in terms of a new battle for the starting rotation and a spot on this roster. When we come back, Braden Surprenant Show, live from Dave & Buster's on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks to all of you guys for coming out to Dave & Buster's. We got some college basketball games coming down to the wire right now. First game of the day, Mississippi State and Baylor. Baylor's leads by 3. It's 70-67, 90 seconds to go. Baylor shooting free throws, the second of 2 right now, and it's good. 71-67 in favor of the Baylor Bears. Robert Morris is not going away, folks. Alabama leads it by 2 on Robert Morris with 8:47 to go in the second half. Memphis and Colorado State all tied up at 15. Iowa State is hammering Lipscomb 40-24 at halftime. We'll keep you updated on March Madness throughout the entire day. Again, big thanks to all of you guys for coming out and hanging out with us. We got some news for the Padres, not necessarily good news on the roster front. As reported by Dennis Lin and A.J. Cassavell, Darvish, and listed with elbow inflammation according to A.J. Cassavell, will miss the start of the season. News that has been expected for a few days but was just confirmed by Mike Shildt. No timetable, though Shildt said, quote, "We feel pretty comfortable that some rest and getting ramped back up will be the answer." So Mike Shildt is still optimistic about the news on Darvish, but he will start the season on the injured list. So that's obviously significant for a Padres rotation that was relying heavily on Darvish to go out there and get some innings for him, as well as Michael King, as well as Dylan Cease. You already knew you weren't going to have Joe Musgrove for the entire season. You brought in Nick Pivetta, but now that kind of lack of depth is starting to hurt a little bit with Darvish starting the season on the injured list. They haven't made the roster move yet, but apparently, according to A.J. Cassavell, Mike Shildt said today that Darvish with elbow inflammation will miss the start of the season. Now, what Dennis Lin had to say, I think this is a little interesting and intriguing. Dennis Lin talked about in his tweet, and this is a direct quote at Dennis T. Lin, Darvish is expected to open the season on the injured list, as mentioned before. Kyle Hart, Stephen Kolek, and Randy Vasquez are competing for 2 opening day roster spots. One of those 3 will start the season in AAA El Paso. So before, we thought it was going to be, Kolek and Hart and Vasquez competing for 1 spot in the rotation, 1 spot in the bullpen, and a AAA starter. Now it's going to be 2 of those guys are making the team. Now, whether or not they're both in the rotation or one's in the bullpen remain to be seen, but I think obviously you could start doing the math that they're both going to be in the starting rotation. So 2 of the 3. It's either going to be Kolek, Hart, and Vasquez, and one of those guys is going to go down to AAA El Paso. So the way that plays out, I think it's very interesting because you could do it a bunch of different ways. You could send the young guy down to AAA in Vasquez, in Randy Vasquez. You could build him up, make sure he's built up and ready to come up and start for the Padres, which you're going to need him now to make some starts for you at the beginning part of the season. You can have Kolek go down to AAA and get more innings as a starting pitcher because you know what you're going to get out of Randy Vasquez, and he made starts for you last year. And then the thing with Kyle Hart, I think Kyle Hart's on the team. I mean, I don't really think he's going down. They brought him in. He was the best player in the KBO last year in terms of pitcher. So I think Kolek's part of the rotation. He's probably your number 4. And then Hart. I think Hart's part of your rotation. I think he's probably number 4. And then I think they go Vasquez 5. And then I think they're going to go with Kolek in AAA El Paso. And I think that's the way you start the season. And then when you need another arm, at least you could go with a 5-man rotation the way the schedule's out. I mean, the Padres have an off day every 6 games right now to start the year, which means you could keep a 5-man rotation. You don't have to get, too crazy with, having to pick up arms and have guys pitch on short rest or anything like that. And so you have some time to build this thing out. So, you could do it a bunch of different ways, but the news that we got right now from Mike Shildt through A.J. Cassavell and Dennis Lin is Darvish will start the season probably on the injured list. He won't start the season for the Padres on the 26-man roster. So, again, I think that was news we thought was going to happen. Again, Mike Shildt mentioned that they're optimistic that a little bit of rest and re-ramp up will get him ready to go for the season, and it's not going to be anything more serious than that. Obviously, we got to keep our updates with the San Diego Padres, but to me, I think I would go with, I'd honestly have Kolek go down to AAA and let him log innings, and I'd let Randy Vasquez be the number 5 guy and let Hart be number 4. So that changes things a little bit. I mean, your first weekend series is a pretty big one against the Atlanta Braves. Again, when you talk about the Braves, that's one of the teams that you're competing for a playoff spot with. Everybody in the YouTube chat has the Dodgers swimming in their head. They're thinking about the Dodgers all the time. Forget about those guys, okay? You don't need to worry about them. Play them in the playoffs. What you should be worried about are the Diamondbacks and the Braves and the Mets and the Phillies, not the Rockies. Maybe the Rockies in the sense that you've been swept by the Rockies too many times, and you got to take care of business against teams that are inferior to you. But it's the Cubs, it's the Braves, it's the Phillies, it's the Mets, it's the Diamondbacks, it's the Giants. And honestly, one of those 3 of the East is going to win their division, so you really don't have to worry about them. So it's Phillies, Mets, it's Giants, Diamondbacks, and it's the Cubs. Maybe it's the Brewers if the Cubs win the division. And so those are the teams you got to worry about, which means you got to hit on this first weekend series to start the season, a 4-game series against the Atlanta Braves, who I thought last year was extremely talented. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. And I think the Braves are going to win that division. So, but it's good to get those early wins against them. And then after that, you're going to be going against the American League Central favorite in the Cleveland Guardians the next 3 days. After that, I mean, it's a big first 7 games for the Padres at home. And what you thought was going to be a pretty solid 1 through 4 in your rotation with King, Cease, Darvish, Pivetta, and Hart, now all of a sudden it's a little bit different, right? Now all of a sudden you're going with King, and then you're going with Cease, and then you got Pivetta, who I think has played himself to a position where he's a good number 3 anyway. But then you're really taking a chance on Hart. I've been a big advocate for Hart since he came over. I mean, he's got some good stuff. He's got electric stuff. And, you can look at spring training results all you want, but the way that even the balls that have been hit against Hart have not been hit very hard. A lot of weak contact. Even the home run by Corbin Carroll he gave up in the spring training game had an expected batting average of 150. A home run with an expected batting average of 150. Talk about spring training results in Arizona. I mean, the ball flies out of those ballparks. Not only is it high altitude, but also, I mean, you got the wind blowing out of those places, and everybody's playing at noon. It's all the day games, everything like that in the springtime. So you can't look at the individual results. You got to talk about the process, but I like the way that Hart's put it together. But now he's getting pressed into action. And then I mentioned I'd have Vasquez go 5 instead of Kolek. We had Kyle Glazier on earlier in the week. He mentioned Vasquez because you know what you get out of Vasquez over Kolek. I think you could go young guy down in AAA 2 to log innings. I think you have an option for both. But it's a really interesting conversation when it comes to starting pitching. I mean, we had updates on Matt Waldron and stuff too about him potentially coming back at some point. But and we'll get to that update later. But this one came down. I mean, we had Mike Schilt yesterday was, Yu Darvish threw the other day and he played catch. He's going to play catch today. And, we're feeling okay about it to now. He's probably going to start the season not on the roster, probably on the injured list. And then we hope that, and we think that just a little bit of rest and recovery and revamp can get him back going for the season. So we'll see what happens. We've heard that message before from the Padres. And it'd be nice to have Yu Darvish this year, but to lose Darvish for a significant amount of time after you're not going to have Joe Musgrove for the entire year, that really puts your pitching depth into a bind to start the season. And there's a lot of things you could have done, during the offseason to potentially prevent this from happening. I mean, you rolled the dice with going with some of the players that you had going, we're going to hope that they stay healthy like they've done in the past. It'd be nice if they made a move or two. I mean, they could have got a haul potentially for Cease. They still could get a haul for Dylan Cease. But at this point, I mean, you really need him to start the weekend. It'd be nice maybe to have Adam Mazier and Robbie Snelling right now with that added depth instead of having the rental for Tanner Scott. We'll talk about that and how that impacts the rotation when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, live from Dave & Buster's all the way through 7 o'clock and the Scraby Show right here on 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show live and local from 10 to 2 each and every day on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks to all of you guys coming out to Dave & Buster's today. We're out here at 2931 Camino del Rio North in Mission Valley watching college basketball. Games going down to the wire. Baylor up 75-72 with a half a second left, but Baylor shooting free throws. So Baylor probably going to pull this one off and advance in the NCAA tournament, another 9 seed advancing. The big one, though, right now in March Madness today is Robert Morris is not going away. The Colonials are hanging with Alabama right now as they're down 6 with 4:37 to go in the game. 72-66 Alabama with 4:37, now 4:16 left in the second half. That one's coming down to the wire. We'll see if Alabama can hang on against the 15 seed, the 2-seeded Alabama Crimson Tide. Coming from that SEC, as we talked about yesterday with our resident SEC fan over here, Adam Klug, it just means more. A tough showing yesterday from the Southeastern Conference. Top of the conference did pretty well. Tennessee cruised in their game. Arkansas beat a lousy Kansas team yesterday. I mean, we talked about it before, with just so many teams that they had into the NCAA tournament. 14 to 16 teams in the NCAA tournament from one conference is utterly ridiculous, regardless of how good that conference seems to be. To me, you got to be at least 500 in your conference. I don't care how good your conference is. And we'll see what Oklahoma's got later today. I've been a big anti-Oklahoma guy in terms of them making the NCAA tournament because of the fact that they went 6-12 in conference play. Now, they did have a good non-conference, so I can't get too upset about that. But Oklahoma will take on the back-to-back defending national champion UConn Huskies in an 8-9 matchup coming up later on this evening at 6:25. They'll be on during the Scraby Show here at Dave & Buster's. But you look at the SEC results yesterday, and they got a couple of wins in there with Auburn as the number 1 seed. They got a victory. Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas A&M. A lot of them were close games. But Alabama right now in a dogfight with Robert Morris in the 2-15 matchup. Not good look. Texas already lost in this particular tournament, too, in the first 4. Lost to Xavier. Georgia got smashed by Gonzaga yesterday. And now Alabama on the ropes here against Robert Morris. But, again, shooting free throws back up there for Alabama. Game's final for Baylor and Mississippi State. Baylor moves on, representing the Big 12. They knock off SEC Mississippi State 75-72. Games coming up. Colorado State has a 28-27 lead on Memphis right now. 4:41 to go in the first half. Iowa State up on Lipscomb 44-26 as they just start the second half of play. Iowa State out of the Big 12 cruising right now. That's a team that's been a little bit of a disappointment in a lot of different facets of the late kind of months in college basketball. I mean, some just blowout losses at home to inferior Big 12 opponents. Did okay in the Big 12 tournament. Their biggest thing is health. They're not at full strength. They're trying to get to that spot, but they're cruising against Lipscomb in that particular game. Next game to tip off, Cooper Flagg and the Duke Blue Devils against Mount St. Mary's in a 1:16 matchup. That will be coming up in about 13 minutes or so. And then Vanderbilt and St. Mary's will start off in the noon hour at 12:15. I think that's going to be a great basketball game with Randy Bennett's crew. I mean, St. Mary's, I've gotten to watch St. Mary's a couple of times this year, working in the West Coast Conference. That is a machine. Randy Bennett's team is a machine. They're 28-5. Don't get a lot of credit because they play in the WCC out here on the West Coast. They beat Gonzaga 2 out of the 3 times, lost to them in a close game in the West Coast Conference tournament. But St. Mary's is a team that's really, really talented. And Vanderbilt upset a lot of good teams in the SEC. They beat Tennessee, one of the best teams in conference. They did a pretty good job in that very, very good SEC conference this year in basketball. I'm looking forward to that game. I think that game's going to be great later on at 12:15 during our time slot. Final 2 games coming up in the NCAA tournament in what I like to call the morning slate of games here in day 2 of the NCAA tournament. North Carolina and Ole Miss. See if North Carolina can match what they did against San Diego State. I mean, they ran San Diego State out of the building earlier this week. And what I thought was kind of an embarrassing loss for the Aztecs for the way the program has been and the way that they have achieved a lot of high standards over there on the Mesa. I think they'll regroup and come back from it. But, North Carolina and Ole Miss, I mean, that would have been a great time to check out the Aztecs at 1 o'clock today. Instead, it's going to be Ole Miss and North Carolina. I think that's going to be a great game. And then Grand Canyon versus Maryland at 1:35. I talked about yesterday when it came to being a coach, at any type of level, especially at a school, and having that buy-in from the academic side of the school. You always need the buy-in to have a good program. And I talk about Maryland, and I have a clip on the show. We'll get to it later about Maryland's head coach talking in a press conference, and it made it sound like he ain't staying at Maryland much longer because of the lack of resources and funding that he's getting for a Power 4 program. I mean, he wanted to stay an extra day in New York on one of the road trips because they had to deal with Christmas and everything like that with his team. And Maryland's like, nah, we're not paying for the hotel. We don't have the money for that. I mean, it's just you have to, when you sign up to be a coach somewhere and you need that you need that support from the school and you're not getting it. You can only go so far as a program when you don't have that full support. And what really sparked this conversation is UCSD is giving Eric Olin and the athletic department their full support, why I think they're going to continue to be a player in college basketball. So we had some updates for you on Darvish. It sounds like he is not going to start the season on the roster. He's going to be on the injured list to get things going. We got those reports from Dennis Lynn and from AJ Cassaville out there reporting. Our Sam Levitt was a part of that press conference, and he was able to get Mike Schilt talking about Darvish and talking about the roster spots over there in spring training. Here's Mike Schilt.
Darvish, he's in a rest phase. Did not play catch yesterday. Going to go a couple days, just give it a little bit of a rest, work on some other things physically, and then reboot. We'll determine that as it goes. But just taking a little break from playing catch and go from there.
The calendar would suggest that you'll be looking for a replacement starter for that.
That's accurate. Yes, sir.
What does that do? You've talked about it. You have options. Yep. But I know you'd be evaluating these guys anyway, but what does that do this last week of camp?
Well, it makes a couple, 3 guys that are competing for the last spot create an opportunity to open up one more. So that's one thing that's wonderful about this game is, the opportunities that can be presented. And all those guys that worked really hard to put themselves in a good position, and we still have a couple days where we have to make some hard decisions.
The importance of depth, you maybe anticipate one of those 3 guys can continue to stretch out in AAA once the season starts.
Yes, I would expect that to be the case. I can't say absolutely because we do have competition for the end of the bullpen, and we want somebody that has some link to that. But I would expect that whoever's, I can't say this for sure, but if 2 starters take the 4th and 5th spot, that the guys that's the odd man out, so to speak, would start in El Paso and ready and built up.
You guys always had a plan to sort of make sure that Darvish was number 39 was strong at the end of the season. So with it in perspective, you'd love to start the season with him, but is there what is your perspective on the fact that you could be losing him for, I don't know, a month or whatever it is?
Yeah, I don't know what the time frame will be. It's early to tell. Listen, it's part of it, getting ramped up for spring training. We got something really from the commissioner's office actually this offseason about where some setbacks are most likely to occur with pitchers. Understandably and likely historically that happens in spring training. So, the best laid plans, which we had a lot of good plans, and a lot of them have been beneficial. We're seeing the fruits of the plans and concert with the medical and performance staffs. They don't always go, perfectly straight line. So, you had a little bit of a setback, and we'll evaluate as it goes.
Has there been imaging? Have you guys ruled out anything that might be serious?
We feel pretty comfortable that some rest and getting ramped back up will be the answer at the moment.
Mike Schilt saying we feel really comfortable that giving him some rest and ramping him back up will be the recipe for success. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if that happens to be the case. I hope it is the case for the San Diego Padres and Darvish, because right now, No, you're seeing yourself, and this is what I talked a little bit about it yesterday. I think it's hard to say and really talk about, the hindsight of some of these moves. Because I think a lot of fans would sit there and look at last year, and I think a lot of fans here can agree. I mean, we think the Padres had I thought the Padres last year had a really good chance of winning a World Series. And I think at that point in time, you have to go after it. I mean, any chance that you have at the deadline to go win a World Series, you have to go get it. And if you don't, and you just, play for the future, look, you can play it safe, but when you're not one of those organizations that has endless amounts of money like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Giants and all these organizations that have TV contracts that aren't affiliated with those regional sports networks that the Padres had to be affiliated with, that have big sponsorships in the big cities that can overcome guys getting hurt and overcome bad deals and everything like that. So when you have that particular situation, you have to be able to really put all your resources all in when you have the best opportunity to win a World Series. And the Padres, I thought last year, at least in my lifetime, accounting aside from like when I was 3, when they went to the World Series in '98, in my lifetime, I thought last year was their best chance at winning a World Series in the last 20 years. And I'd be hard-pressed to find another time where you thought the Padres had a better chance of winning a World Series. I mean, look at 2010. They won 90 games. I still didn't think that team was probably a World Series caliber team. I mean, you could look at the early 2000s, that 05, 06, 07 kind of stretch for San Diego. 05, 06, 07 for the Padres. I mean, one of those years, they won the division at 82-80. I mean, that's not like a World Series caliber team. And both times that they made the playoffs in those years, they got ousted by the Cardinals early on in the playoffs. One time they got swept, and the other time they won one game. These last couple of years, in the last 5 years, they've made the playoffs 3 times in the last 5 years. And in those times when you think you got a team that's good enough to win, I think anytime you have guys like Fernando and Manny and, you go through it, Xander and some of these veterans that you spent a lot of money on, that's the time where you have an opportunity to go win a World Series. So I think at the time, these moves were all good. But when you say all in, this is what you're talking about. It's future years of the Padres and their pitching staff. And when you give up some of that depth, to help now, you're sacrificing the future. I think you're starting to see it right now with the Padres with some injury concerns in the starting rotation. Look at what could be a battle for the rotation with Adam Major, with Robbie Snelling, with Dylan Lesko, with Kyle Hart, assuming you would have signed him if you held on to these guys, Randy Vasquez, and Stephen Kolek. You depleted your starting rotation, but if you had the depth, you would have 6 guys battling for spots right now, in which 2 could make the starting rotation. You could probably put 1 in the long relief spot, and then you have 3 guys that could be in AAA as a starting pitcher stretched out, and now you have the depth. And you did that for Jason Adam, who's still part of the team, and you have years of control. So the Dylan Lesko trade doesn't hurt as bad now. And again, I think both the trades that you made last year for Adam and Scott and Arise and Cease are all moves that you had to make at the time. But this is where the pain sets in. This is where that, sacrificing the future gets into the conversation of filling out a roster. It's right now where when you do lose guys and you can't rely on them to make it through the season healthy, which is a difficult plan in general. It's not a safe plan. I mean, you're definitely rolling the dice. This is where it hurts. So Lesko is now a member of the Tampa Bay Rays because he was traded for Jason Adam. And I don't think that trade is as bad now. And I don't think it was that bad of a trade in general. But the one that really hurts right now is the one that you traded for Tanner Scott. Now, you did get Brian Hoeing back as well, but they said at the beginning of the year that Brian Hoeing wasn't going to be part of the starting conversation. He ends up being hurt a little bit to start the season. And we got some updates on him. He's throwing again, which is good. That's good news for the Padres with Brian Hoeing, and hopefully he can be back for them at some point as a long relief man. But with this playing out right now, it'd be nice to have Robbie Snelling or Adam Major right now. I mean, those are two guys that could be helping the Padres in terms of their starting rotation. Without further ado, we do this each and every day around 11:50. It's time for the Sports Thread.
You know that group chat, the one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
Bringing Frank Marchese to help us out with the Sports Thread. Frank back in studio doing a great job at the 97 Through the Fan headquarters at the Odyssey Empire. We're down here at Dave & Buster's. We're going to be here throughout the afternoon with Gwen and Chris, and then later on with the Matt Scraby Show. Frank, take it away. What we got for number 1?
Number 1. If I would have had the pot on. Anyway, we'll start with the NHL, where the Great 8 is now one step closer to being the greatest ever. Washington Capitals legend Alexander Ovechkin is now just 7 goals away from resetting a record that many thought would never be broken. Ovechkin scored a goal last night in the Caps' win over the Philadelphia Flyers, giving him 888 in his illustrious career, leaving him just 7 goals behind Wayne Gretzky's record of 894. The Caps have 13 games left in the regular season, which means that Ovechkin needs to average about a goal every other game in order to break Gretzky's record. And at the pace he's going, he should get there in the final handful of games. This is one of the biggest, if not the biggest story in the NHL right now. The Great 1 versus the Great 8 in the Great Chase.
What do we got? What's your question?
Oh,
can he do it? Yes.
Yeah, can he do it? Yes.
Yes, he can. I think he can. He's got to get 7 goals in 13 games.
Yes, 13 games.
Yes, I think he's going to be able to get it. I think Ovechkin ends up getting the record. Number 2.
Number 2.
There we go. As Braden mentioned before, San Diego FC will take on Austin FC on Sunday afternoon in the standalone match on Apple TV+. And there is some history on the line in this match. While San Diego FC haven't won all of their games this season, they have a 0 in the loss column through their first 4 matches in franchise history. If they do not lose against Austin, they will tie the MLS all-time record for longest franchise start without a loss. St. Louis City FC went 5-0-0 to start their franchise history, beating the LA Galaxy and Austin FC along the way. San Diego FC already has made a name for themselves in the MLS, sitting second in the Western Conference standings, but they have a big chance to make some MLS history in the Lone Star State on Sunday. Do they at least get the draw to draw history?
Well, the way they're playing right now, I think they can against Austin FC. I mean, that would be a great notch, or should I say feather in the cap for San Diego FC to be the team that starts out first, best ever start to a franchise, in MLS history, most unbeaten streak. We'll have Drake Hills on later on at 1:35, joining us here down at Dave & Buster's to get a full preview of the MLS matchup for San Diego FC. But I think they get at least a draw. They've done a good job. But now the thing that hurts them a little, they play an aggressive style of soccer, which is susceptible to giving up some goals. But they've done a really good job so far, and they're playing really well. I think they continue the momentum.
Big second half turnaround against the Crew last week as well.
Number 3.
All right. Note to all University of Georgia football players, Uber and Lyft do have access through Athens, Georgia. Sophomore wide receiver Nitro Tuggle hit the nitro button a little too much and was arrested for speeding and reckless driving on Thursday morning, while freshman offensive lineman Marquez Easley was involved in an accident on Monday morning in which he crashed his car into the Athens Ridge apartment complex. Both players have been suspended, but this is just a continuation of a major issue that Georgia has. Since January of 2023, Georgia has won 24 football games. In that same time span, Georgia has 25 football players arrested, and the majority of those arrests being with driving infractions. What can this university do to curb this?
Yeah, this is obviously needs to be more of a point of emphasis than anything else. I mean, I don't know how they can continue to allow this. I thought for sure they would have had the scare already and be able to, fix it with some of the issues they've had in the past, but it just continues to be a problem. And this obviously is not getting addressed by the school, nor by Kirby Smart. So they said that they have assessed the situation and they have addressed the deal down there with, suspensions and everything like that. But I mean, I can't believe for a program that has had this happen so many times, I can't believe that it continues to happen down there in Athens.
It really is amazing.
Number 4.
All right, last one we're going to have time for. The fate of the Paul Skeens MLB debut card has been uncovered. Last year, the card company Topps printed a 1-of-1 Paul Skeens card with his ML debut patch in the card. That the Pirates offered 30-year season tickets, a meet and greet with Skeens, 2 signed jerseys,
football game, and
numerous VIP experiences, both at PNC Park and at spring training, as well as a night in Olivia Dunn's suite at PNC Park. Believe it or not, an 11-year-old Dodger fan doesn't have much of a use for Pirates season tickets and decided to sell the card instead. The card was sold at a Fanatics auction to an unknown buyer for $1.1 million. I love sports memorabilia. Even if I had the money, I could not personally justify spending $1.1 million on a single item, especially a baseball card.
I couldn't either. I can't believe that. That's at $1.1 million for a baseball card is insane.
Amazing.
Insanity. Halfway through lunchtime hour, got a lot of lunchtime deals and a lot of deals here at Dave & Buster's. Come out and join us, Braden Surprenant Show. When we come back, full update on March Madness and what to watch for later today. Plus, talk more about the position player battles to make the Padres roster and any other news we get out of Peoria. Braden Surprenant Show rolls on. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Padres Reds.
And he swings at the first pitch.
Lunchtime hour here at Dave & Buster's. Thanks again for coming out today. A lot of great deals at Dave & Buster's. Will be here for the rest of the afternoon. I'll be here till 2 o'clock. And then coming up, 2 o'clock will be the Gwynn and Chris show. And then Matt Scraby will hold things down from 6 to 7 on the Matt Scraby show as we continue March Madness here at Dave & Buster's. A lot of great games on hand this afternoon. We'll keep you updated on that as the afternoon progresses. I do want to mention, remember to listen at 1 o'clock for us to announce today's biggest fan for a chance to qualify for a night in our Odyssey suite at a future Padres game. Register your name at 97throughthefansd.com/biggest fan in order to potentially have your name called. We'll be doing that at 1 o'clock. Again, this is the last day. So we got 2 names left. We got my show, and then we got Gwynn and Chris. Those are the last 2 names being called for the biggest fan. Should be a fun time to whoever wins. Again, we had a pretty good week this week. Had a couple of people call in. Kevin McCarthy did, and Richard Price did. Waiting, hopefully, our contestant today will call in coming up at 1 o'clock. I do want to mention there's a lot of great stuff that we're giving away today. We're giving away a Robert Suarez baseball in the 1 o'clock hour to people that are in attendance here at Dave & Buster's. We're giving we have raffle tickets and everything like that. Go talk to my boy Hamby over here when you show up to Dave & Buster's. He's got a lot of prizes to give away as well, T-shirts, as well as some Dave & Buster's cards, some game cards and everything like that. We also got a Pop-A-Shot competition going on. Current high score right now is Jamie with 62 points. 62 points on the NBA competition, as they like to call it on the Pop-A-Shot. So you can come out and win some prizes doing that as well. The highest number for a while was 36, but we're up to 62 on that. So a lot of fun stuff going on here at Dave & Buster's throughout the afternoon. Got some March Madness specials today on March 21st. 20 wings for $20 and a $5 draft beer. Eat and play combos, full entree with a game card. And they got new games out here. They got UFC game, Human Crane, and Top Gun Maverick. So get out to Dave & Buster's here at we're at 2931 Camino del Rio North in Mission Valley. Having a great time here at Dave & Buster's. Again, big thanks to all of you guys out here. Big thanks to everybody in the YouTube feed. We got a lot of good numbers on YouTube today. If you haven't done so already, give us a like on YouTube. It really helps us out in growing the show and getting it out there to as many people as possible. You can also follow the show on 97.3 The Fan SD on social media, as well as my personal social at @B_SURP. I post a lot of content on Instagram and on X, as well as TikTok. So give us a follow. Really appreciate that to continue your local San Diego sports coverage. So with all that said and done, let's talk a little bit more college basketball as we kind of recap yesterday and talk a little bit about what to watch for today. Again, scores of games that are currently in action. Only a couple games going on so far. As of right now. In fact, only one really in action, and that's Iowa State and Lipscomb, and it's not really much of a game. Iowa State's up 64-38 on Lipscomb in the second half, under 8 minutes to go in that particular contest in the South region. Memphis and Colorado State are at halftime. Memphis leads at 36-31 over Colorado State. Games coming up next, Mount St. Mary's and Duke will tip off at 12:09. Vanderbilt and St. Mary's at 12:15. And in the final hour of our show, North Carolina will tip off against Ole Miss, and Grand Canyon will tip off against Maryland. Maryland, a 10.5-point favorite in that contest. Other games that have gone final, Alabama holds off Robert Morris. Robert Morris gave him a run for the majority of that game, but Alabama outscores them 50-45 in the second half, and they win in Cleveland, Ohio, 90-81 in the East region. So sweating out some brackets with the number 2 seed in the East region. Alabama survives against Robert Morris. Earlier today, Baylor beat Mississippi State 75-72 and gets a win for the Big 12 over an SEC opponent in Mississippi State. I'm not a huge anti-conference guy when it comes to rooting for your conference rival in an NCAA tournament. We've had a decent amount of people vote on that today on the do you know ball question of the day. Can you root for your conference rival in the NCAA tournament? Can you root for a conference foe in the NCAA tournament? 68% of the people voting in the poll today said, heck no, not rooting for my rival or any type of conference foe in the NCAA tournament, despite what kind of money it might make for the conference or how it might make the conference a little bit better. Never doing that. I don't mind it. I'm not a huge conference pride guy. Like, I'm not considering myself a national champion if somebody in the Big 12 wins a national championship, but I don't mind the Big 12 schools winning, especially with, some of the Big 12 schools playing SEC schools. It's nice to see them win. Baylor beat Mississippi State today. Iowa State's cruising to a victory. So I don't mind it. And if you want to vote on the poll, you can check it out at B_SURP at BSURP. Or you can check it out on 97 through the fans Twitter page as well. We'll get to that later on the show. How everybody voted in that particular deal. And I mentioned it earlier when my buddy was here. UC Irvine grad was like, absolutely not rooting for UC San Diego last night. So I don't mind it. I thought UCSD played pretty well last night. I thought they could have got out with a victory. Again, they had to deal with the two big men in the middle. Michigan, not necessarily one of the I know they won the game. I think it was a very beatable team for UCSD. I think this is on the rise is pretty good. I think it's really good news, for the program and for the Tritons. And so if you are a Tritons fan and you were fired up about last night, give me a call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. But they lost Tate Jones in the game late with the foul trouble. I thought some of the fouls last night were kind of ridiculous with Michigan and UC San Diego. But what a cool moment for everybody that's a Tritons fan and a Tritons alumni for what they have come from in Division III to Division II to playing Michigan in an NCAA tournament. It's pretty remarkable. It's pretty remarkable. So love that and love the performance that they had. They ended up winning 30 games this year. Really, really great season for UC San Diego. Other games to talk about from yesterday. We thought, we talked about it when I helped you fill out your bracket, that Creighton was going to be better than Louisville, and they handed business against the Louisville Cardinals. High Point gave Purdue a little bit of a run, but Purdue really held off the High Point Panthers. Wisconsin didn't have any issues with Montana. Houston didn't have any issues with SIU Edwardsville. Auburn, even though they got challenged a little bit late, was able to move on against Alabama State. McNeese State went out and punched Clemson in the mouth, and Clemson took the entire second half to battle back against McNeese, and they ended up losing by 2. But McNeese State and the way that they are built and the way that they play basketball, I mean, they really caught Clemson off guard. And Will Wade, the head coach for McNeese State, Clemson alumni, taking it to his squad that he played for and ended up coaching for a little bit of time. And the thing is that, Clemson gave their head coach right before that game a contract extension. I was wondering if there was a clause in there that if they lost to McNeese State that they take a year off his contract after losing that particular game, but there wasn't. But McNeese State did really well, and they're moving on to the round of 32. BYU over VCU pretty easily, 80-71. Gonzaga hammered Georgia yesterday, 89-68 out of the West Coast Conference. I mean, you can talk about the SEC all you want, and they had a good year this year. But the SEC, the bottom half of their conference right now is not doing that well in the NCAA tournament. And, 14 teams out of a 16-team league making the NCAA tournament is already kind of ridiculous. I don't really care how good of the conference is, but there's a lot of good teams in some of these mid-major conferences that are obviously proving that they belong there a little bit more than maybe some of the bottom feeders of the SEC. I think the biggest one to look at here is Oklahoma and UConn, and we'll see how Oklahoma does against the UConn Huskies, who are back-to-back defending national champions and the number 8 seed in the West region, which is a gauntlet of a region, the West region. Oklahoma and UConn, winner of that plays Florida, who's probably going to win their first-round game. And you look at the rest of that bracket, I mean, the coaches on the other side of the West region with Coach Calipari and Coach Rick Pitino and Bill Self in that Kansas, Arkansas, St. John's portion of the bracket. I mean, the round of 32 game tomorrow between Arkansas and St. John's is going to be great. I mean, two teams that have coaches that both coached at Kentucky, that are legendary coaches, that won a bunch of games for the Kentucky Wildcats and then dueled it out in the Kentucky-Louisville battles for years in the round of 32 with an opportunity to go to the Sweet 16. That's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good basketball game tomorrow. Evening slate yesterday, Tennessee was not tested by Wofford. Arkansas, beat a lousy Kansas team. I mean, Kansas is good enough to make the NCAA tournament out of the Big 12 conference, but watching them play all year, they weren't as good as they've been in the past. I mean, the Jayhawks, and the thing was that was interesting for Kansas is Kansas at some point during the year, their alumni were going, why is this? Why are they not playing up to our standards? How are all these teams getting us? In which I thought a comment was pretty funny. No, the difference is everybody can pay players now. It's not just you at Kansas. So there maybe the playing field's been leveled a little bit when it comes to the Kansas Jayhawks and college basketball. Yale tested Texas A&M, but they were able to hold them off. Drake with the big upset over Missouri, another 11 seed over an SEC school. UCLA not fazed by Utah State. To go back to that poll question we had today, when it came to what do you root for your conference foes or your conference rivals in the NCAA tournament? Ben Higgins had a great answer here. He said, I'm not going to root for any other Mountain West school for a couple of reasons, but one of them being it's kind of nice being the only school in the Mountain West Conference that actually wins NCAA tournament games. I mean, aside from San Diego State, Mountain West is 0 in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, they haven't won an NCAA tournament game with the exception of San Diego State. Colorado State was trying to flip that against Memphis, and score update on that is it's still halftime 36-31 in favor of the Memphis Tigers. But not only that, New Mexico's playing later today. We'll see if New Mexico can get a victory for the Mountain West, because right now Utah State, San Diego State not getting the job done, and that's bad news for Mountain West hoops. Keep moving along here for some of the games from yesterday. Texas Tech over UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington gave them a scare for a while, but we're able to overcome that. St. John's not really tested by Omaha. That was a 30-point victory for the Red Storm. Earlier today, Baylor beat Mississippi State to advance. Alabama beat Robert Morris to advance. Iowa State is all over Lipscomb right now, under 4 minutes to go, 73-46 lead for the Cyclones. And then we talked about the games that are at half, and then Duke's out to a 10-2 lead to start their game against Mount St. Mary's. Games coming up, as mentioned, Vanderbilt and St. Mary's. Mount St. Mary's and St. Mary's are two totally different teams. I think I have to sometimes say that. The St. Mary's Gales are in the West Coast Conference, the same conference as the University of San Diego. They're a machine. And I've said that earlier in the show, but Randy Bennett's crew is one of the best teams in the West Coast Conference, one of the best teams on the West Coast, one of the best teams in the NCAA tournament, and the way that they play together, and the system that they run. I mean, they're an up-tempo basketball team that moves the ball around, and they can make shots. And they're playing a Vanderbilt team, again, one of those teams in the middle to bottom half of the SEC that has played good competition, but not necessarily a great record. At 20-12, it was good. They beat a couple of good teams in non-conference, but the Vanderbilt-St. Mary's game, I think, coming up at 12:30 is going to be one of the games of the day, followed by another game of the day in North Carolina and Ole Miss. North Carolina, Ole Miss, I think, is going to be a good one, too, at 105. Grand Canyon, Maryland. There's something the Maryland coach said that I think really goes to the point that I was trying to make yesterday, and we'll get to that soon. But I don't think they're not going to be tested very much with Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's okay. I watched them play USD this year at the Intuit Dome. They've been really good in the past, but they're just not the same team that they were in the past, at least this season. And they're a team that's been very difficult to play on the road. Usually a well-coached team, very athletic, but I don't think Maryland's going to have any issues with them. Florida and Norfolk State will be a walk in the park for Florida. Some people think that Troy can give Kentucky a run for their money. I think Kentucky's too good. New Mexico, Marquette, another 10-7 matchup. I like the Lobos in this one against the Golden Eagles out of the Big East. I think that's going to be a great game. Oklahoma, UConn's got a chance to be one of the games of the night. Bryant plays Michigan State. I think Michigan State's going to cruise. And then Liberty and Oregon finish out the night at 7:10. And then, of course, Akron and Arizona earlier today at 4:35. Kind of the rest of the schedule for you in the NCAA tournament. But I'm going to go back to that, UConn-Oklahoma game. I think this game is one of the better games of the night. I want to see what Dan Hurley's got in this game. He's gone to the national championship back-to-back years and has won the national championship back-to-back years. Now he's got to go through an Oklahoma team near the bottom half of the SEC, and we'll see what UConn's got for Oklahoma. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I think there's a lot of good games left. You didn't really get too much madness yesterday in March Madness. I don't know if it was a disappointing first day. I think the upsets were good, but not too many buzzer beat. Hadn't had the buzzer beater day yet. Hadn't had that close game come down to the wire. Even the games earlier today, Baylor, Mississippi State was pretty good, but aside from that, these teams from these power conferences are kind of holding off a lot of the scares. There's something that was said yesterday by Maryland's head coach before he addressed the media for their game against Grand Canyon. And what he said goes along the lines of that success of the program and having the backing, of the academic side of your school. What he said, I think, really emphasized what we were talking about yesterday and why, I said UCSD is going to be able to keep this up. What did he say? We'll hear from him when we come back. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2, live from Dave & Buster's, right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800.
Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2. We got Drake Hills coming up at 1:35. We'll get you a full preview of San Diego FC coming up on tomorrow. They got a game in Austin against Austin FC, trying to be one of those expansion teams that gets off to the best start. Frank Marchese had our rundown earlier on the start that San Diego FC could pass in terms of being unbeaten to start the season. We're going to talk about that with Drake. He'll be with us live here at Dave & Buster's. If you're in the area, great lunchtime specials, great specials for March Madness today and through the evening. Select days for the tournament today and coming up on April 7th. 20 wings for $20 and $5 draft beers. They got eat and play combos, full entree with a game card, and also some new games here at Dave & Buster's, UFC, Human Crane, and Top Gun Maverick. If you show up to Dave & Buster's, if you walk in here at 2931 Camino del Rio North, we're to the left. When you walk in, you see the bar. We're to the left down in the lower area. We got 3 big screens behind me playing all the NCAA tournament games. They're on a bunch of different TVs. There's a couple of rooms you can watch it in as well, and of course, a lot of great arcade games. I got to jump on the Papa Shot, and top score today, 62 points on the Papa Shot. You can compete in if you get here and win some prizes. We're going to give away a Robert Suarez signed baseball in the 1 o'clock hour to people here in attendance at Dave & Buster's. You can also win a bunch of different gift cards at Dave & Buster's and some play cards if you come out here and hang out with us and watch some NCAA tournament. Wrap up work. It's a Friday afternoon. NCAA tournament's on. Get out here and come play with us. So, no, in the chat, $20 for 20 wings, not 20 beers. $5 drafts. And head over and watch Gwen and Chris. They'll take over from 2 to 6, and then Matt Scraby will be on from 6 to 7. I'll hang out a little bit after as well. Meet a lot of you guys out there. And again, thanks again for coming out and supporting the Braden Surprenant Show. Really appreciate it. If you're watching live on YouTube, thanks to all of you. I know the chat's a little down today, but that's fine. Give us a like on the video. We really appreciate it. It helps out our algorithm. You can also follow me on social media at @B_SURP, at @BSURP. Be sure to follow me on X and Instagram as well as TikTok. We're going to be producing a bunch of content on there as well. And if you've already followed me on social media, you can see some of that, content from our shows. And that's that. I do want to mention that we talked about it yesterday, but I think it was a great clip by the Maryland head coach that, talked about what it's like, being part of a program. And he's in a Power 4 situation, right, with Maryland, and talking about the support that he gets from Maryland. And there's a couple things that he doesn't see eye to eye on, and why I said how valuable it is for UC San Diego to get that support from the school. Here's what he had to say for his introductory press conference before their game against Grand Canyon.
I took you guys 3 questions.
I wanted to ask about the basketball too. Okay. But, obviously your name has come up as a candidate for various positions because Maryland has done so well this year. Have you felt compelled to address any of that with your team at all, or future at Maryland?
Yeah, I've addressed it with them directly. I'll say this is Damon and I talked on Sunday night right before Selection Sunday. He gave me a term sheet right before Selection Sunday. I really wasn't focused on it. Been focused on this team and this. Damon's talking to me. I talked to Damon this morning at length about where we are. Obviously, difficult right now. I think we know his situation. He's probably going to SMU, so it's kind of tough to negotiate with somebody that's maybe not here. But I need to make fundamental changes to the program. That's what I'm focused on right now. That's why probably a deal hasn't gotten done, because I want to see. I need to see fundamental changes done. I want the program to be great. I want it to be the best in the country. I want to win a national championship. But there's things that need to change. When you're at a place for 3 years and you put your heart and soul into it, you kind of sit there and say, okay, wait a second, for us to be really successful, X, Y, and Z needs to change. First and foremost, I need to make sure that we are where we are with NIL rev share is not where we've been with NIL the past 2 years. We've been one of the worst, if not lowest, in NIL in the last 2 years. So that's first and foremost. I also have to make a fundamental change where I can do the things that I want to do with my program. You know, I wanted to spend an extra night in New York this year to celebrate Christmas with my team, and I was told that we can't do that because it's too expensive. So I don't know how we can be a top tier program and I can't spend one extra night in New York because it's too expensive. So there's fundamental things I'm fighting for my team and my program. It's not so much about me. I want to make sure that whatever we do going forward, we're successful, and we're successful at the highest rate. So I'm confident that we'll get things done. It's a little difficult right now. I'm not going to lie, but I'm confident that no matter who we're negotiating with at the end of the day, this program is going to be in a great spot. And that's really my focus, is this tournament, this team, and this program.
To unpack with that right there from the Maryland head coach, but the thing that was really interesting to me was the fact that he mentioned how the school didn't want to pay for an extra night of a hotel in New York when he was asking for an opportunity to stay there and make it easier for the travel for the team. And there's a lot of schools that are cutting budgets like that. TCU is out here for baseball, against USD, and I was talking with their personnel, and they said this is the first time we've ever flown Southwest, because at the time bags they've flown for free. And they're trying to cut back on a lot of travel expenses, stuff that they would just write a check for now. But with the way everything's going with college athletics, there's a lot of budget cuts happening, obviously, because a lot of the money that they've been using for that is now going to be put forward to NIL money and basically pay to play for some of the student athletes. I mean, again, the money is from somewhere, right? So it's interesting to see that. I'm curious to see what a lot of these schools do. But, I mean, you're even talking about a school like Maryland, who's got great support in the ACC, the Big Ten. They're the Big Ten. One of the two premier conferences in college athletics, and they have to cut for travel expenses. So, again, it's not necessarily a big school you have to be at in order to be successful. It's not necessarily – whoa, look out. It's not necessarily a situation in which, even if you have the best talent, you're going to go out there and win, and it comes to recruiting and everything like that. You have to have the support. And so, if you want to see San Diego State get to that next level, and I think they've obviously shown it, they're trying to get themselves into a better conference situation with the Pac-12. They're trying to they've spent money on the new football stadium, right? They're going to try to get more NIL for their basketball team. But you have to get support from the academic side and the ones that help the funding with the program if you want to be a successful program. And that's why I think UCSD is going to be in a good spot, because they're getting that right now. The other clip I want to play is from McNeese State's head coach. It's an interesting perspective on what to expect. An interesting perspective on him leaving potentially for a new job and the players maybe coming with him. I mean, that's something you haven't seen before. We'll hear what he had to say when we come back. Plus, 9 bold predictions for the MLB season. I'll let you know if I'm buying or selling them with Frank Marchese when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:38 on a Friday, day 2 of round 1 of the NCAA tournament. Braden Surprenant here at the Braden Surprenant Show. Live at Dave & Buster's. We'll be here up until 2 o'clock, and then Matt Scraby, Tony Gwynn Jr., and Chris Ella will take over, as we got a nice mixed crew with that one coming up later. Obviously, Chris is going to be from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as the Aztecs women's basketball team will take on LSU tomorrow. Last chance for a potential victory in the NCAA tournament for one of our local teams. We're 0-3 so far, although tomorrow is going to be the biggest test because tomorrow was the day that had the biggest underdog for all 4 of our teams with women's basketball for the Lady Aztecs. So we'll be here until 2 o'clock. Again, I'll be hanging out a little bit after as well to hang out with you guys. And then, of course, coming up after the Gwynn and Chris show, Matt Scraby will take you into Scrabistan for the final hour of our coverage here at Dave & Buster's. Again, it's a great place to come watch the basketball. We got games on TVs all over the place behind me, over in the bar area. You can go play some games as well. But a great place to watch the NCAA tournament. We'll keep you updated on some of the scores here in just a bit. I do want to mention 20 wings for $20 today at Dave & Buster's, $5 draft beers. Got some eat and play combos, full entree with a game card. And they got some new games that they want to throw out there for you guys to check out. UFC, Human Crane, Top Gun Maverick. They got the Connect 4 basketball shot game that I want to go play later on when I get off. They also have the Papa Shot here. And the Papa Shot's for a contest for our listeners here. And right now, Jamie's in first with 62 points. They got 62 points in a minute on the Lakers Papa Shot. So we got to see everybody on there. Adam did a pretty good job. He had 36. Ben had 34 points. Some of the fan personnel that were out there shooting earlier today. I don't know if our guy Jeff Hamby is going to jump on the Papa Shot or not, or if he's done it already. He almost got taken out by a speaker earlier today. That was rough. But when you get here to Dave & Buster's, we're here at 2931 Camino del Rio North. Walk through the front doors, go to the left, and you'll see all of us here hanging out in front of all the big TVs with us up on a stage. Talking ball with you guys. And then if you go and see Jeff Hamby and you go see our friend Riley here with the promotions team, they'll get you hooked up on how you can win a potential opportunity to win a Robert Suarez signed baseball, as well as other giveaways for Dave & Buster's and 97.3 The Fan. So again, big thanks to everybody that has joined us here at Dave & Buster's. We got Mission Valley Nick in attendance. We got Ron in attendance, just showed up. So it will keep coming. And Anthony's here over there, despite the Saints Cathedral rivalry. He's here in full support. He heard I had too many Cathedral guys on, so he's here to try to represent St. Augustine a little bit. I appreciate that. I hope Anthony knows that our guest at 1:30 is also a Don, so if you can boo him if you want. But he's going to be talking soccer with us later at 1:35. So a fun time again. Thanks again for everybody that's been on the YouTube page. Give us a like on the YouTube. It helps us out mightily. So give us a big thumbs up, and thanks again. So we're talking a lot of different things. Obviously, March Madness will get you updated on the scores. And then we got some Padres news that we want to reset with you guys at 1 o'clock. Games that are currently in action for the NCAA tournament. Colorado State is taking a lead on Memphis. They're up 6 in the second half, 56-50, as a 12 seed trying to knock off a 5. 10:50 to go in the second half. Duke all over Mount St. Mary's as expected so far in the game. 6:30 to go in the first half. And then Vanderbilt and St. Mary's, not to be confused with Mount St. Mary's. Vanderbilt and St. Mary's just tipped off. It's tied at 7 as they're at the under 16 timeout. I think that's going to be one of the best games of the day. Vanderbilt and St. Mary's. Games coming up later on at 1 o'clock. North Carolina, Ole Miss, and Grand Canyon and Maryland. We just heard from the Maryland head coach about the support that he may or may not be getting at Maryland before they take on Grand Canyon, which I think is an interesting conversation. Speaking of support, I want to get into this later on in the 1 o'clock hour if we have time. Bennett Woods briefly talked about it, but that new media rights deal that Modern Day Santa Ana, was a high school in Orange County, signed a 10-year contract worth millions of dollars, a 7-figure deal in terms of media rights for the Modern Day Monarchs up there in Orange County. It's a very interesting thing in college athletics and now coming down to high school athletics. I mean, that's the type of contract that teams sign in order to get their games broadcasted on the radio. Like most schools in college athletics, how it works is you make a deal with a company, like a JMI or Learfield or something like that. You sell them your media rights. They then go buy airtime on particular radio stations, and then they sell the commercial breaks. And that's how a lot of these schools have their radio deals to get their games on the air and how they make money off of this. And so the fact that modern day Santa Ana, a high school in Orange County, has made one of these deals for a 10-year, 7-figure deal, to me is insane. That is really insane. And they're going to help out, obviously, with sponsorships and everything like that for all their sports. And a team that's already probably one of the best teams in the United States, or best schools in the United States athletically, just got even more resources and probably even better. We'll talk about that in the 1 o'clock hour. I mentioned Drake Hills is going to join us at 1:35. He'll be here to talk soccer. San Diego FC off to a great start, one of the best starts in MLS franchise expansion history. We'll talk about their game coming up on Sunday against Austin FC, and a big matchup for San Diego FC as they play their third road game of the season. They're already 2-0 on the road. It's always great to get 3 points on the road. They've done it twice now. So anything but any draw or better, and San Diego FC could build off of that start to their season. We don't have time to get to both of the things I wanted to get to, but let's get to the bold predictions for the Major League Baseball season. Here's Frank Marchese as we try to buy or sell what MLB.com thinks is going to happen this year.
Yeah, so we got a good amount of stuff that we can go over. First of all, the playoffs are one of those things where you would normally expect teams to be there most any given time. Certain teams you would expect to be there every single year. However, Major League Baseball throws out a prediction. The entire American League playoff field will be different from last year. Now, the last time this happened, it would have been in the National League in 2007. The Mets, Cardinals, Padres, and Dodgers made the playoffs in 2006. The Phillies, Cubs, D-backs, and Rockies made the playoffs in 2007. Do you think that it is a possibility that this year no American League returners will make the postseason?
I'm going to sell that. I don't think that's going to be the case. There's a lot of good teams in the American League, but they're very top heavy. I think the American League is a very top heavy league, and if you compare the two leagues, I think the National League is by far better than the American League. But, teams like the Yankees that made the playoffs last year, I think they got a good shot at making it again this year. Same thing with the Baltimore Orioles. I think they're going to make it this year. I don't think the entire American League playoff field will be different from last year. And I also don't think it's like a short margin of separation between, the top and the bottom. I think it's very much a top-heavy league where you're going to get the same division winners and probably the same wild card. There might be a couple of changes, but I'm going to sell that bold prediction. I don't think the entire American League playoff field will be different from last year. Bold prediction number 2.
Oh, bold prediction number 2. Okay. The A's and Rays will both make the playoffs. Now, the Rays have a solid, competent team, and the A's somehow magically found money. Who would have ever guessed? So will it be the A's and Rays, two different teams playing in minor league baseball stadiums come playoff time?
I don't think they both make it. I think the Rays have a pretty good chance of making the postseason. I think the A's, the Athletics, have gotten a lot better. And when you talk about the Oakland Athletics, they're not. They're just the Athletics.
No, they're the.
That's like a CSUN situation. We're not Cal State Northridge anymore. We're just CSUN. We're not the Oakland Athletics or the Sacramento. We're just call us the A's. All right, fine, A's. They went out and spent money. I mean, it's amazing when professional organizations need money, when they need a new stadium, all of a sudden they find money to spend on players. And the A's did that. They found money to spend on players now. So I think they might be in the conversation later on. But could you imagine an MLB playoff game at a minor league stadium for Tampa or for Sacramento, for the A's?
No.
I mean, that would be insane. There's no way Major League Baseball would allow that. Could you imagine if they happen to make it to the World Series? I mean, think about that for a second. Imagine the Fall Classic happening in Sacramento or at a minor league ballpark in Tampa. There's no way Major League Baseball would ever allow that to happen. And I don't think those teams are in that conversation yet. But the American League being top heavy, we'll see. But right now, I'm going to go with, I only buy half of that. I think the Rays have the best chance out of the two teams. I don't think the A's make the playoffs.
I would agree with that. All right, number 3. You guys know New York, very, very close to my heart. Apparently not as close to Major League Baseball's heart. Number 3, both New York teams miss the postseason this year.
As much as I'd love to buy that, both New York teams missed the postseason this year. I'm going to sell it. And I think the Yankees don't make the playoffs, but I do think the Mets can make the playoffs. I do think the Mets still can make the playoffs. I mean, think with the Yankees, they're aging, right? They lost Garrett Cole for the season. The pitching is not there. They're trying to find an answer to their pitching staff. They want to make it from within. I just don't see it working out for the New York Yankees. I don't think they got better from last year. I think they got worse. And last year they came up short in the World Series. So if I had to pick between the two teams that will make the playoffs and who won't, I'd pick the Mets making it and the Yankees not. I think one of them will make the postseason, though. Phillies and Braves have been pretty good. Now, in order for this to happen, the Padres and Diamondbacks probably have to outdo the New York Mets and everything like that. So I'm going to sell it, but I'm more intrigued. I think this one happens a little bit more than the other potential bold predictions. Sorry to upset you, Frank.
No, I would be more. I'd be more in line with what you said. The Yankees have had so many crucial injuries. Now, the Mets have had injuries as well, but not necessarily to like level players such as a Garrett Cole. So the next prediction here, the last time anyone stole 80 plus major bags in the major leagues, done twice in 1988. Vince Coleman stole 81 and Ricky Henderson stole 93, both of them in 1988. Bold prediction is that Ellie De La Cruz will accomplish that feat this year, stealing 80 plus bags.
I'm actually going to buy this one. Ellie De La Cruz, 80 stolen bases this year. I could buy that. The guy's unless Elias Diaz is behind the plate, because he can't steal on Elias Diaz. We saw that in spring training this year. So, good news for the Reds is that they don't play the Padres too many times. They're only going to play him 6, maybe 7 times this year anyway. So, I think he does it. I think he's, obviously one of the fastest players in Major League Baseball. He's one of those freak athletes that we've seen now, and a lot of great athletic players in Major League Baseball right now. How it's so much easier to steal bags now than it was in the past. So I am going to buy Ellie De La Cruz with the 80 stolen bases. Now, the thing is whether or not the Reds will allow him to do that. I think they will, and I think he'll go out there and swipe 80-plus bags. I'm going to buy it.
He wants to steal 100. I don't see it. I just do not see it. I would love to see it happen. I would love to see fast guys and big-name stolen base guys just let go and just go for it, have fun, but I just don't see it happening.
Number 6.
Yep, next up. Somebody other than Luis Ariz will win the National League batting title this year. Now, mathematics would say, yeah, there's a bigger chance of that, but you got to think he's coming back off that thumb injury. He's feeling good. What he's done this spring, I don't know.
I am going to sell this. I do not think someone other than Luis Ariz will win the National League batting title. I think with Ariz being healthy, I think with the wrist injury, now a thing of the past, and he still was able to do it, or his thumb injury in the past, I still think, he was able to win the batting title with a thumb injury. So with the thumb injury gone and not have to worry about it and back to full strength, the way that he likes being on the Padres and being in San Diego, I think he is going to continue to win the batting title again, and that's why I'm going to sell this. I don't think anybody else will outdo Luis Ariz, especially in this day and age of baseball. I mean, Ariz is so much a old school hitter in terms of singles and putting the bat on the ball, great contact hitter. Everybody else is swinging and trying to go for home runs and extra slug and everything like that. And those big swings usually lead to a lot of punch outs. So I don't think anybody's going to hit for a higher average than Luis Arraez. Got time for probably one more. We'll skip number 7, Frank, and we'll move on to straight to number 9 at this one, since it's a World Series prediction.
Yep. Number 9. Who would you have? Now, this is just you personally. Who would you have winning the World Series this year?
If I had to pick with like a lot of money on it, I'd probably pick, the team that's favored to win the World Series would be the Dodgers. If I had to make a bold prediction, though, I don't necessarily know if I'd pick this team to be a World Series champion.
The Philadelphia Phillies are this team that you were referring to. I cannot agree with this. On basis and premise alone, I cannot agree with this.
Well, a dude from New York, of course, would never pick the Phillies to win a World Series. Absolutely. But, a bold prediction, the Phillies will win the World Series. I'm selling that. I think, a bold prediction to me that I would be able to buy, because obviously picking anybody besides the Dodgers to win the World Series right now, to me, is a bold prediction. I mean, they're obviously the favorite to win the World Series. I don't think anybody in the American League is going to be able to beat the National League. I think the National League is far superior this year than the American League, and we'll see how it plays out throughout the season. To me, if I had to make a bold prediction I think the Atlanta Braves are built to take down the Dodgers and to win a World Series. They're back healthy now. I mean, what they did without Acuna and Strider last year, and now getting both of them back is a major upgrade. We'll see what the latest is with Jerickson Profar, but they made some moves, to improve their roster. If I had to make a bold prediction, it would be that the Braves win the World Series, but I'm selling on the Phillies winning the World Series. Frank, really appreciate it. We'll get back to you in a little bit with some NFL free agency, but when we come back, we got an update on you, Darvish, as well as the Padres roster. What does Mike Schilt have to say about maybe mixing things up in the rotation? We'll get to it when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Tony Gwynn Jr. here, and one thing
Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show here at Dave & Buster's. Thanks again to all you guys coming out and supporting today. We'll continue our 97.3 The Fan coverage here through the Gwynn and Chris Show at 2 o'clock. They'll be on at 2, and they'll go till 6, and then Matt Scraby from 6 to 7 in Scrabistan out here at Dave & Buster's. Again, thanks to all of you guys for being out here. A lot of deals today at Dave & Buster's. 20 wings for $20 and $5 draft beers, plus some eat and play combos, full entree of the game card, new games, UFC, Human Crane, and Top Gun Maverick. Come out and check it out. Got a lot of prizes to give away. In this hour, we'll be giving away a signed Robert Suarez baseball for everybody that got a raffle ticket and signed up with us. Again, if you show up here at Dave & Buster's and walk into the main entrance and take a left, you can see us. We'll be here underneath the big screens. We got the Vanderbilt and St. Mary's game above me, as well as the Duke Mount St. Mary's game on. Colorado State is in a battle right now with Memphis, but they have the lead. We'll get you some more score updates in just a little bit. But when you walk in, if you want to be eligible to win some prizes today, walk over and say hi to Jeff and Riley, who are getting your information and pulling a lot of different prizes out of the hopper today for you guys here. We also got the Papa Shot contest. 62 points is the current leader for Papa Shot. So got to get some of you guys out there and see if you can set the new high score on the Papa Shot. We'll be here again till 2 o'clock, or at least I will be, and then Gwynn and Chris will take over at 2. But the time is now. It is the final time that we will announce a biggest fan name on the Braden Surprenant Show for this particular contest. So make sure you're listening. Make sure you're ready to call in. But today's biggest fan is Parker Phillips from San Diego. Congratulations, today's biggest fan, Parker Phillips from San Diego. Give us a call back within the next 10 minutes at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, and you'll qualify for our grand prize. 20 tickets for you and your friends for a night in our Odyssey suite at a Padres game later this season. Remember to register your name at 97throughthefansd.com/biggest fan. Parker Phillips from San Diego. You got 10 minutes to call in at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. And Frank will let me know if Parker Phillips does, in fact, call in. I mentioned the the NCAA tournament scores. We'll get you updated on that momentarily. But first, we do have some news from the San Diego Padres in terms of their starting rotation. We got an update on Darvish and his health status. Here's Mike Schilt from the media news conference earlier today talking about Darvish and the plans for the rest of the rotation.
How was Darvish?
Darvish, he's in a rest phase. Did not play catch yesterday. Going to go a couple days, just give it a little bit of a rest, work on some other things physically, and then reboot. We'll determine that as it goes. But just taking a little break from playing catch and go from there.
The calendar would suggest that you'll be looking for a replacement starter for the.
That's accurate. Yes, sir.
What does that do? You've talked about it. You have options.
Yep.
But I know you'd be evaluating these guys anyway, but what does that do this last week of camp?
Well, it makes a couple, 3 guys that are competing for the last spot create an opportunity to open up one more. So that's one thing that's wonderful about this game is, the opportunities that can be presented. And all those guys have worked really hard to put themselves in a good position, and we still have a couple more days where we have to make some hard decisions.
Given the importance of depth, do you maybe anticipate one of those 3 guys continuing to stretch out in AAA once the season starts?
Yes, I would expect that to be the case. I can't say absolutely because, we do have competition for the end of the bullpen, and we want somebody that has some link to that. But I would expect that whoever's – I can't say this for sure, but, if the 2 starters take the 4th and 5th spot, that the guy that's the odd man out, so to speak, would start in El Paso to be ready and built up.
Well, you guys always had a plan to sort of make sure that Darvish was going to be 39, was strong at the end of the season. So with it in perspective, you'd love to start the season with him, but what is your perspective on the fact that you could be losing him for, I don't know, a month or whatever it is?
Yeah, I don't know what the time frame will be. It's too early to tell. Listen, it's part of it, getting ramped up for spring training. we looked and got something really from the commissioner's office actually this offseason about where, some setbacks are most likely to occur with pitchers, and understandably and likely historically that happens in spring training. So, the best laid plans, which we have a lot of good plans, and a lot of them have been beneficial, and we're seeing the fruits of the plans in concert with our medical and performance staffs. They don't always go in a perfectly straight line. So, Hughes had a little bit of a setback, and, we'll evaluate as it goes.
Has there been imaging, and have you guys ruled out anything that might be serious?
We feel pretty comfortable that some rest and getting ramped back up will be the answer at the moment.
Just the way he said that last part is, I would say, a little concerning, but we'll see. I mean, that's what they're telling us right now with you, Darvish. Again, it's, I think, a little rest and recovery, and a reboot is going to be good enough for him to be out there at some point in the season. Obviously, they need somebody else to fill the void for the first couple of weeks of the season. It sounds like you, Darvish, will start on the injured list to get the season started, although the Padres have not made a roster move yet, so nothing's official, but that's the latest from Mike Schilt, which means, as he said, as part of that answer about Randy Vasquez and about Stephen Kolek and about Kyle Hart, is now those three pitchers are battling for 2 spots on the roster, and then the other one will be out there participating with the AAA El Paso Chihuahuas to be built up as a starting pitcher. That's where everything stands right now, so hopefully it's not a big deal for you, Darvish. Hopefully he is able to come back at some point at the beginning part of the season, but when you look at the starting rotation for the San Diego Padres right now, top 3 are really good. But then after that, I mean, you're taking a risk on Kyle Hart. I've been a big Kyle Hart supporter for the number 5 spot for the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to do a good job for the Padres, but it's still a risk that you're taking with him coming over from the KBO after having a little bit of a shaky start to his career in Major League Baseball. Now, that being said, the Padres' track record right now with pitchers coming from Asia in either Korea or in Japan has been pretty good. I mean, they had a guy like Nick Martinez in Japan that came over and was great. I mean, he was great for the Padres after not necessarily having the greatest start to his career with the Texas Rangers. Robert Suarez, another one of those pitchers, even though he's a closer and a relief guy, he's another guy that started off, didn't work out in the major leagues, and then all of a sudden went to Japan, pitched, got innings, did a good job, and is now the closer for the San Diego Padres. So they've had good success. So I think with Kyle Hart, it's still a risk, but I think you could basically pencil him in as the number 4 starter in that rotation. And then you get to the number 5 spot, and to me, it's either Kolek or Vasquez, right? Those are the final two pieces. One of them's going to make the team. The other one's going to be in El Paso. You either have the young guy go to El Paso and log innings in Randy Vasquez, or you have Kolek go down to the minor leagues and let him log innings because he's still coming and flipping it from being a bullpen piece last year and the last couple of years after starting his professional career as a starting pitcher. Maybe it's better for him to get starts in AAA El Paso before getting thrown to the fire of the big league club. I mean, at least with Randy Vasquez, he has experience, and you know what you're going to get out of Randy Vasquez as a number 5 starter. He did it last year. So, you could go youth in AAA, or you could go experience in AAA in terms of Kolek and not having that experience, that maybe Randy Vasquez does. So, to me, I think you probably go with Vasquez as the number 5 starter, and we'll see over the next couple of days for the Padres in spring training. And then it's either going to be, to me, it's either Vasquez or Kolek battling for that number 5 spot now. So we'll see how it plays out. And again, hopefully everything's the deal with everything's good with you, Darvish, because the Padres took a big risk last year in going all in and acquiring guys like Tanner Scott and acquiring players like Jason Adam, in which you got rid of a lot of your depth pieces in the organization that are starting pitchers. At the time of those trades, and I've already mentioned before, I think those trades were definitely moves that you had to make right then and there, because last year the Padres definitely thought that they were a World Series caliber team. I thought the Padres were a World Series caliber team last season too. In fact, in my lifetime, I think last year is probably the best shot that they have had, since 1998 at winning a World Series. The way the team was constructed, you want your MLB team to go after it when you have a chance to win a World Series, and they did. They went and got Jason Adam. And the thing with the Jason Adam trade, you gave up a guy like Dylan Lesko that you could be using right now, but even with Dylan Lesko, at least when you required Jason Adam, he had multiple years of control. And he's still part of the organization. So losing Lesko doesn't hurt as bad, but the downside, of course, is he's not a starting pitcher. You then go to the other trade, and that was the one to bring in Tanner Scott. And you rented Tanner Scott, who's now a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who you didn't give an offer to, didn't give a qualifying offer to, didn't bring him back, and instead he signs with your rival. And for that rental, it was a huge piece for the Padres in the postseason, but you traded away 2 starting pitchers in that trade for Tanner Scott, in Adam Major and Robbie Snelling. Now, those are 2 pieces that also you could be using right now in your rotation and part of the depth. So when you go all in, this is what you're sacrificing in situations like this. All of a sudden now you have to put a lot of faith in your veteran players to stay healthy the entire season. And right now, one of them just got dinged for the beginning part of the year in Darvish. I mean, Michael King just threw the most innings he's ever thrown in a season last year as he transitioned from the bullpen to a starting rotation spot. So, hopefully he can make it through the season unscathed. And a guy like Dylan Cease. Those are 2 guys in walk years. You got a Nick Pivetta. You want him. I mean, he had some issues in the past too. I mean, you're really putting a lot of faith in your organization and more so in your pitching depth to stay healthy the whole year. And that's a big risk. And I know injuries can happen to anybody in any team. But when you don't have that extra depth because you traded it away the year before, you're now put behind the 8 ball in some of these particular cases. You're hanging on and everything's being held to get together right now with tape. So, I still think those trades needed to be made when they were made, but this is the risk that you take in the all-in. And I think you're all in again this year. And you hear it in my open all the time. You can't punt on a Manny Machado prime year. You can't. I mean, when you got Bogarts and Manny in their primes and you're paying them a lot of money, you're paying them all that money in the future for right now, in their prime, not when they're 35, 36, 37 years old. That's not what the contract is for. You're paying them to hopefully you win a World Series when they're in their prime, and then after you're just having the World Series hangover for a couple of years, and who cares? We won a World Series. So those are some of the risks that you take when you make those trades, when you have an injury like this. And, you still could have, you could have added during the offseason on the fringes. I think they did a good job in some of these contracts with King and Pivetta to make them affordable and obviously underneath the threshold that they wanted to be underneath. But, they don't really have a lot left to make any type of moves at the deadline if they are contenders at the deadline. We all know what the potential moves would be made at the trade deadline if the Padres are not successful in the first half of the season. You have Michael King you can trade. You have a Dylan Cease you could trade. You have a Robert Suarez you could trade. But, if if the Padres are in contention, which I think they will be still at that time for some type of wild card spot, you got to be able to add starting pitching, and those guys are not cheap. The thing with the Tanner Scott deal that I thought maybe offset the cost of some of your young starting pitching was Brian Hoeing as a long relief man could be a player into a starting rotation spot. But they announced early that, before he even was hurt, or they knew he was hurt, that he wasn't going to be part of the starting rotation deal anyway. He was just going to be a long relief guy. We did have an update on him. He's throwing again, which is good news. And we'll see what happens. But, the Darvish news today is not great. He's going to start the season on the injured list. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully it's not a whole year thing. They think a little rest and relaxation is going to get him to a point where he can start throwing again, and then they can work him back up. Now, I'm not worried about you getting worked back up into season mode because he's such a pro at that. I am a little bit concerned of him being able to just do that, though. If he misses a half of the season, that's fine as long as the second half of the season he's able to play. But if he can't play this season, I don't know where the Padres go from there. Now you're putting a lot of eggs in the Kyle Hart, Steven Kolick, Randy Vasquez basket to get you through the majority of the year. Because, again, there's not too many resources out there for you to go get another starting pitcher. Braden Surprenant Show here at live at Dave & Buster's. We're going to be here for the next hour. And then Tony Gwynn Jr., Chris Ello, and Matt Scraby will take over for Gwynn and Chris. We got a lot of great deals going on here at Dave & Buster's. 20 wings for $20 today, and then they'll do it again on April 7th. $5 draft beers, eat and play combos. We got tons of prizes we're giving away. A lot of people have already won some with some cards to play at Dave & Buster's, as well as we'll be giving away a Robert Suarez signed basketball coming up as well in this hour for anybody that signed up. Again, if you come on out, we are at the Dave & Buster's in Mission Valley at 2931 Camino del Rio North. If you walk in, go to your left. We'll be hanging out over there. Go say hi to Jeff Hamby and Riley. They're the two that are getting you signed up for all the raffle tickets and everything like that. It's a fun time. Got a lot of great NCAA tournament games on right now. Some scores for you that have progressed. Vanderbilt's jumped out to a 27-18 lead on St. Mary's with 90 seconds to go in the first half. Ole Miss up 14-10 on North Carolina. Ole Miss jumped out to a hot start. North Carolina has closed the gap a little bit. They're at the under 16 timeout right now in the South region. Duke is having no issues with Mount St. Mary's. They're up 54-28. Games that have gone final already today as you check your bracket. Colorado State becomes the first Mountain West school to win an NCAA tournament game that's not named San Diego State. They won today 78-70 over Memphis up in Seattle. So Colorado State, 12 seed, upsets the 5 and advances in the NCAA tournament. Robert Morris, the 15 seed, gave Alabama a ride, but Alabama won 90-81 in the 2-15 matchup. Iowa State beat Lipscomb 82-55 in the 3-14 matchup in the South region. And then the first game of the day, the Baylor Bears out of the Big 12 Conference beats Mississippi State in the 9-8 matchup, 75-72. Those are some of the games that have gone final. We still got one more game to tip off in this morning slate. Grand Canyon and Maryland will get underway in about 15 minutes or so. But when we come back, we got a couple more things we got to dive into. NFL free agency happened over the last couple of weeks. A lot of moving parts with the NFL free agency. We'll get you the buy or sell of what to react to after free agency has basically run the majority of its course. Plus, coming up at 1:35, Drake Hills will join us on the show. Braden Surprenant Show live from Dave & Buster's right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local from 10 to 2 each and every day on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Coming up at 1:35, we got Drake Hills joining us as we will talk some soccer with him with San Diego FC starting a great start to the season and are trying to add to that against Austin FC coming up on Sunday. So Drake Hills will join me live here at Dave & Buster's. Again, thanks again for everybody that's been out here today. We really appreciate it. And we'll have Drake joining us momentarily. But before we do that, we do want to we haven't had too much time to talk about the NFL with the free agency they've had. I will update you on some scores first, but that's some bold predictions on the free agency on buy or sell. And we'll bring Frank back in. But right now, 3 games going on with a 4th game coming on at 1:35, Grand Canyon and Maryland. Duke leads by 30 on Mount St. Mary's in the second half. They're up 60-30. It's halftime between Vanderbilt and St. Mary's. Vanderbilt's got a 7-point lead, 29-22. And with under 12 to go in the first half, Ole Miss out in front on North Carolina, 20-11. Those are the 3 games currently going on in the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about the NFL a little bit. Here's Frank Marchese with some bold predictions on the NFL free agency.
Yes, NFL bold predictions, as everybody knows in this time slot. My favorite sport, my favorite league. So first of all, the first bold prediction revolves around the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs' 9-year AFC Western Division title streak comes to an end this season.
Kansas City franchise tag guard Trey Smith. They re-signed receiver Hollywood Brown, running back Kareem Hunt, added cornerback Christian Fulton, running back Elijah Mitchell. They got Minshew Magic now. Gardner Minshew is the backup quarterback for KC, but the Chiefs also traded away, Joe Thuney, and they'll be has been a reliable starting guard for Kansas City. So I until somebody overtakes the Chiefs, it's hard to say. I think a lot of people probably driving around town probably think their Chargers will overtake Kansas City. I mean, the Chargers didn't really add too many pieces during the offseason either, at least so far. They're going to have to do a lot better in the draft. Maybe Ron's Vegas Raiders can overtake the Chiefs this year. I don't think that's going to be the case. But I'm going to sell this. I don't think the Chiefs' 9-year AFC West Division title streak will end this season.
Have you heard the rumors going around about the Chargers and a possible trade that they could be making?
I've not heard the latest trade rumors of the Chargers.
There is a light rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, that they could be trading Justin Herbert to Minnesota before the draft.
Wow. I don't know if the Vikings would do that, but Vikings trading for Justin Herbert would be an intriguing move. I don't know why the Chargers would do that, aside from the fact that they're cheap. But that's it. So speaking of the Vikings,
I was going to say that is an unconfirmed report. So,
that's definitely unconfirmed.
Speaking of the Vikings will take back the NFC North away from the Detroit Lions this year.
Well, Minnesota, one of the league's busiest teams last week. They signed veteran defensive tackle Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to bolster the D-line. They brought in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly to bolster that O-line, and returning quarterback Byron Murphy Jr., running back Aaron Jones, substantial deals. Obviously, clear the Vikings are trying to ride the momentum of their 14-3 season from a year ago and build on it with deep roster capable of cashing in with some postseason success. I could buy that, honestly. I think it depends. Now, the thing is, it depends on the quarterback situation, but Kevin O'Connell has done a great job with 2 quarterbacks now that have not done great in other places. We talk about, what the Falcons did last year at quarterback with Kirk Cousins, and when he was with the Vikings, stud. When he's not with the Vikings, wasn't a stud anymore. And I think you can see the same thing with Darnold. Darnold's now a member of the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll see how that works out for Seattle. But with Kevin O'Connell's quarterback whisperer that he is, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Justin Herbert, even though I don't think it's going to be the case, I could see them doing that with the way they bolstered up their offensive and defensive lines and acquired some talent. Vikings will take back the NFC North. I'll buy that. So if Viking Bob is driving around, be excited. I think the Vikings are winning the NFC North.
You love setting me up for the next thing and making this easy for me. So here we go. You
That's
mentioned
right.
Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. The Falcons are the subject of our next one here. The Falcons continue to mishandle their quarterback situation.
Yeah, they mishandled it last year. I don't know how the Atlanta Falcons could go out there, give Kirk Cousins a 4-year, $180 million contract with $90 million guaranteed at signing, and then in the draft, a month later, use the 8th pick in the draft on quarterback Michael Penix Jr. What are you doing? You knew it was bad when the general manager had to talk with Arthur Blank and explain to him why it made sense to draft a quarterback after they just gave $90 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins in free agency. They have mishandled so many different situations. I mean, you look at the Falcons, that you go back to the Kyle Pitts draft pick in the first round. I mean, you got a team that's trying to build for the future. You bring in a weapon that you don't necessarily need, a luxury you can't afford, and instead of building from the trenches out, you signed Kyle Pitts, or you drafted Kyle Pitts, which was a mistake. You go out, you sign Kirk Cousins, and then instead of helping him out with some pieces in the first round of the NFL draft, you go out there and you draft Michael Penix Jr. Look, you either do one or the other. You don't do both of those situations. So, yes, I buy the Falcons continue to mishandle the quarterback situation.
Speaking of quarterbacks, this one is a whole NFL league-wide issue. This is starting to look like one of the worst possible years if you need a quarterback.
I could buy that a little bit. Worst possible years to need a quarterback. You know, once Matt Stafford, said he was staying with the Rams, top available options were off the board. I mean, it was quarterback change with Geno Smith going to the Raiders, who then signed, the Seahawks then signed Sam Darnold. Vikings tried to hold on to Daniel Jones to be the bridge guy for McCarthy, but he signed with Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson, has been disappointing for the Colts so far. Justin Fields signed with the Jets, which, leaving the Steelers, Giants, and Browns on some level, and Vikings still looking for options that were with not many left. I mean, and there's not too many in the draft either. So, I mean, I know they're going to talk about Shador and some of the quarterbacks coming out of this year's draft, but there's nobody in there that I think is like a foregone, great NFL quarterback. So we'll see what these teams decide to do. But, Aaron Rodgers is still available. Russell Wilson has visited the Browns and the Giants last week. Still remains a possibility for Pittsburgh if they don't sign Aaron Rodgers. Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston out there looking for teams. Except for Cam Ward and Shador Sanders. Now, again, there's not a lot of options out there at quarterback. So, yes, I'd buy this is one of the worst possible years to need an NFL quarterback.
Now, I'm sure it's about a half hour until Gwen and Chris, so I'm sure Matt Scraby is there. Scraby, if you're there, cover your ears for a second.
He's not there yet. He's not here yet. You can rip the Niners as much as you want.
The 49ers Super Bowl window has officially closed.
I will 100% buy that. The San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl window is closed. They had an offseason where the guys are leaving more than they're coming in. I know a lot of these players they have to pay now, but they let Deebo Samuel find a trade. They traded him to Washington. They let Kyle Juszczyk leave. I mean, they ended up bringing him back on a new deal. But when you build these NFL teams, and I thought the Niners built themselves a great team from the trenches out, and they were benefiting from the fact that with their quarterback Brock Purdy being a cheap option, they were able to go out there and be competitive. But Brock Purdy is as good as he was in being basically, to me, a system quarterback. Giving him money is the death sentence to the Niners. They basically Joe Flacco, the Baltimore Ravens. So I think their window's closed. As soon as you got to start paying guys, it ends for you, especially if you have to pay a quarterback like Brock Purdy, the amount of money that you would end up having to pay a franchise quarterback, unless he's one of those guys that can help carry your team with less resources and less support on the fringes. There's no reason you're going to be in a jam for the next couple of years. So, yes, I buy that the Niners Super Bowl window is closed. We'll talk more NFL football as the weeks progress and everything like that. Didn't want to mix that in. We're here live at Dave & Buster's Braden Surprenant Show, leading up to Gwen and Chris starting at 2 o'clock. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, full preview of San Diego FC and their game against Austin, as Drake Hills will join me up here at Dave and Buster's to finish up the show. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local from 10 to 2, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Just going to do a little bit of a
Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every day from 10 to 2, live here at Dave & Buster's. I really appreciate all the fans out there that have come out today to support at Dave & Buster's. We're going to be here, throughout the rest of the afternoon. I will be here for a little bit longer, but right now we're joined by Drake Hills, who is a contributing writer for Black Players for Change. He has also done a lot for covering Major League Soccer, former USA Today Network MLS reporter, covered the league and the U.S. men's national team since 2019. And we're going to finish up our show talking a little San Diego FC. Drake, appreciate the time. Good to see you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see a couple of familiar faces here at Dave & Buster's, a couple of old football coaches. A little bit of a story with the Cathedral Catholic Dons are in the building. But excited to talk a little bit of soccer. San Diego FC on Sunday night soccer against Austin FC this Sunday. So looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun. Again, we got March Madness going on. And here we got all the TVs. We got deals on wings, $20 wings, 20 wings for $20, $5 draft beers. Having a good time here at Dave & Buster's.
Yeah.
Before we dive into the soccer, Oregon Duck got a big game tonight against
I got
Akron.
two big games. Can't forget about the women too.
Oh,
making the
women's team.
tournament.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got women against Vanderbilt at 2:30.
I'm trying to keep an eye on the TCU women right now as they play Fairleigh Dickinson over there.
Yeah, so we've got
TV.
Vanderbilt tonight, this afternoon, and then of course the men at 7:10 against Liberty. So we'll see if Jackson Shellstad and company can get us to the next round. It's been an interesting first year in the Big Ten, Braden.
A lot of travel.
Yeah, lots of travel.
What's your thoughts on that, by the way?
Lots of traveling going to West Lafayette and Bloomington and
as an alumni,
Madison and Evanston, Illinois.
As alumni of Oregon, when that move happened, obviously from a money standpoint, it's great. But from a travel standpoint and being able to watch your Ducks, it's a lot harder to watch them play.
It's a lot harder to follow. But watching, I think, with the CBS crew, I love what they're doing. So it's a little weird, though. Pac-12 on CBS. I still consider us a Pac-12 school.
Right.
So, watching our school play on CBS, that's been taking some time to get used to, for sure.
Hosting Big Ten games in November. And
yeah, I mean, especially, football, you've got snow on the ground. We had a good season up until a Rose Bowl that we will not talk about. We will not talk about the Rose Bowl, but we can talk about a pretty great first year, I think, across all, but football, men's basketball, women's basketball. We had a really great year in volleyball. Obviously, Penn State's really good.
Right.
But, apart from that, I think we've had a first good year in the Big 12. Big 10, rather.
Well, last question about the Oregon Ducks, of course, is about the game tonight against Liberty. Now, you played them in football not too long ago in the Fiesta Bowl. Is that going to be the same result tonight?
I would be nice, right? See a couple of reserves. Bye-bye to our seniors. Not this time, right? Because obviously it's March Madness, so it's a little bit different. But this is a unique setup as far as the tournament is concerned. Like SEC, most teams – a lot of threats I'm looking at in each bracket. Obviously, we've got Duke on one screen behind us. We've got North Carolina on another screen behind us. Unfortunately for the Aztecs, it didn't really go well. And the Aztecs were able to get to the first four, but not to the first round. So, no, I like it. I like this year's tournament. I like what we can do in our bracket. So we'll see.
Potential matchup against Arizona on Sunday.
How far do you have us going in the bracket, Braden? I'm curious.
Losing my Arizona Wildcats probably after beating Liberty.
So I would be content with
that's a good matchup.
Round of 32. Round of 32, I think is decent. Obviously, a Sweet 16 for me is a success.
When the bracket came out, we're going to talk about soccer here in a second. But when the bracket came out, I was like, why are they going to pair Oregon and Arizona in the same? Oh wait, that's right, they're not in the same conference anymore.
I like it.
Bad news to the Aztecs fans out there. Ole Miss is just absolutely hammering North Carolina right now, 35-19 in that game. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt's about to start the second half. It's a 7-point lead for Vandy, 29-22. Duke all over Mount St. Mary's, 73-41, and Grand Canyon in Maryland will get underway in just a matter of moments. Let's talk about San Diego FC.
Let's do it.
Went down early 1-0 to the Columbus Crew, obviously one of the better teams in MLS, but then really bounced back in the second half. Just real quickly before we dive into this weekend, what were some of your takeaways from last weekend's game for San Diego FC as they got another draw at home and continue to be unbeaten?
Well, first things first is the fact that you could score your first ever goal at home. Yes. Right? You had a tremendous start at LA Galaxy, the reigning MLS Cup champions, being able to get an incredible win on opening day. And then, of course, being able to follow it up, albeit a loss for Chucky Lozano to go out injured. However, being able to keep a draw at home in your first ever home game. The good thing about this game, Oni Valakari, right, comes over on loan from Cyprus, comes off the bench, gets a goal. He's a 6'2", able to get a header in on a set piece. I think that was incredible to be saying that you are the first ever goal scorer for San Diego FC at Snapdragon Stadium. So to be able to get that is historical, right? But at the same time, both Ani and Mikey Varas said that they were quite disappointed in the fact that, Columbus goes down 10 men, you have the man advantage, and yet you can't get the 3 points. You can't get the win.
Right.
So there's a hunger for San Diego FC to be able to continue to win games, especially at home. That's obviously essential for an expansion team that wants to, like we talked about last week, Braden, to seek an MLS Cup playoff appearance in their first year.
We're here with Drake Hills. He's a contributing writer for Black Players for Change. He has spent a long time covering MLS as a reporter for USA Today's network, including the men's national team. Local product out of San Diego as well.
That's right.
It was great talking San Diego with San Diego guys. But the thing that I took away from a couple of games ago with Mikey Varas, we talked about it last week, but that aggressiveness and that thirst for 3 points every time, not playing conservative level soccer. I think for a lot of people that are, in this town, football, baseball fans, as the MLS tries to have a mark in the United States and here in San Diego with a brand new team, what about that aggressive play is exciting? I think it's exciting for a lot of people that might be on the fence about soccer.
There's one thing that always comes to mind when folks are getting into soccer for the first time, and that's the game is happening too slow. Right? There's not a whole lot of action. What San Diego FC has done well is creating a formation, but also a playing style that is all about possession and making things happen. They want to play balls into the offensive channel. They want to take risks and sending fullbacks, your outside defenders forward, right? Putting more players forward to try and create more scoring opportunities. They've won the scoring opportunity battle every game that they've played. In MLS and soccer in general, we call this expected goals. Lowercase x, capitalized G. That essentially means the quality of chances that a team is creating during a game.
And a lot of our audience is, really into baseball, obviously being the flagship of the Padres, understand expected results that we talk about all the time. It's very popular. So, a lot of similarities with the baseball crowd and the MLS crowd.
There is, especially when you take a look at a lot of the collective, whether it's win shares, obviously a lot of statistics. If you're a numbers guy or gal watching the Padres, you can do the same thing with San Diego FC. And the fun thing about it is, as I said, with San Diego FC, this isn't the norm with MLS expansion teams. Oftentimes, you will see the last piece that is needed for an expansion team is a quality striker that can make a fan go ooh or ah. Right? Keeping seats empty and having folks stand during the game because something is happening. And that's what San Diego FC, at least for the first home game, when I was there against St. Louis FC, that's exactly how the game went.
And one of the best, it's pretty fun atmosphere out there. And you've covered multiple MLS teams and have gone to a lot of different MLS games. What is that experience like at Snapdragon Stadium? Albeit it was the first game, but they look like they matched it against the Columbus Crew. For fans that are interested in going, compared to other MLS teams, what's the atmosphere like at Snapdragon?
There's a great deal of similarities, but there's also a great deal of differences. And when you took a look at the similarities between a San Diego FC, a St. Louis City FC in 2023, obviously Austin FC, which San Diego is going to be playing this Sunday, expanded into Major League Soccer in 2021. Some stadiums were built, some weren't. So that creates a unique environment. Obviously, San Diego having Snapdragon Stadium is much nicer than, let's say, if they had to play in the outfield of Petco Park.
Right. Or if
for
Qualcomm
example,
was still standing.
New York City FC is playing in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, or they're playing in Queens at Citi Field. So until their stadium is built, obviously their experience is a little bit different. On the field, right, to have that finished product, it looks like, is so much better to have in that first year. But also, I can see now that it's unique when I'm looking at some of the staff, some of the coaches, some of the members of the front office who have worked a year, 2 years to put a team together. Imagine how hard that is to try and put the Chargers or the Padres together for the first time ever without any consistent contracts, any returning players, returning coaches.
And then keep adding as camp goes on, trying to build a team.
Exactly. So to feel the fulfillment of a team finally coming together, it's definitely a great story for San Diego FC, but also for San Diego sports fans, for sure.
Here at Trey Kills, contributing writer of Black Players for Change. He's covered MLS for a long time now. And joining me live at Dave & Buster's. Again, we'll be here until 2 o'clock on our show, and then Gwen and Chris will take over coverage at Dave & Buster's all through 7 o'clock with the Matt Scravy Show starting at 6. Come down and say hi to us. We're going to be hanging out a little bit longer after the end of the show as well. Before we talk about the opponent on Sunday as part of Sunday Night Soccer, which is a big thing for MLS, even though the game's at 1. Let's address how big of a advantage is it, or how important is it that San Diego FC has gotten out to the start that they've gotten out when you are an expansion team and you're fighting for, really real estate in a very busy market because of everything you could do in San Diego? I don't feel like they probably got out to the best start they could have asked for.
Best start you could ask for. And on top of that, it's similar how Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, the calendars, right? That's something that I talk to, not just for San Diego, but also for teams outside of San Diego.
St. Louis has the MLB
St.
team.
Louis, that's right. They have the Cardinals. Obviously, LAFC, they're not too far from Dodger Stadium. So it's sometimes it's kind of awkward to talk about.
Right.
But you are competing for fans.
Right.
You are competing to have bodies in seats. And when you take a look at whether the Padres, the Dodgers, the Cardinals, are they going to get an NL wildcard spot?
Right.
Are they going to play baseball in October this year? Soccer's being played in October, and playoffs is going to start in October going into November. So if you're San Diego FC, how cool would it be in year 1, November 2025, October 2025, to have some playoff soccer, having folks coming to Snapdragon Stadium to watch the playoffs? I mean, who knows? You might. We're making stuff up over here, but imagine San Diego FC, Inter Miami, and Lionel Messi's coming to town, for an MLS Cup.
And then the next day, you got Padres, Dodgers in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, it'd be a great time in San Diego.
You never know.
I know they've had discussions about potentially moving the season to try to, counteract. How much of that is in play, and would that be a wise or a not so wise decision for MLS?
Yeah, so there's definitely been reports during the offseason from 2024 going into 2025 about moving into what we would class as the traditional FIFA calendar, right? So you have a season that starts in August or September that goes into May or June.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that lines up with pretty much everybody else in Europe, everybody on the north side of the earth, but Brazil, Argentina, everyone in South America, everyone going on down there, down under in Australia, they're playing in the same season as we are.
Right.
Mexico is the closest in terms of not just proximity, but also the way that they have almost like a 2-part season. They have Apertura and they have a Clausura as well. So I think that would help in terms of getting players to come to MLS. I think the big challenge is when you have to go play against Chicago Fire, when you have to go play against Minnesota United. And it's in the middle of the season, Braden, and we're going to take a trip to go to an open, no window press box, and it's about 5 degrees outside, and we're talking about soccer.
And the fact that you got to compete with the Chicago Bears now, all of a sudden, right?
Exactly.
The NFL and college football is part of it as well. We're getting close to time. What can you tell me about the matchup on Sunday? What should fans look for when they tune in?
This is going to be probably one of the tougher, if not the toughest tests in terms of a center forward opposition. A striker, someone who's scoring goals. Brandon Vasquez is a San Diego native.
Nice.
A Chula Vista guy who played for San Diego Surf up until he was about 13. Big soccer club here in San Diego. Produces a lot of both men and women professional soccer players, and then moved to Cholos down there in Tijuana before moving on to Atlanta United in 2017. He is a guy that came in for a 7-figure price tag, a high 7-figure price tag. He has yet to really impose himself as an Austin FC player. He's played MLS before. He's played for the U.S. men's national team at a high level. He is a guy who's wanting to impress for Austin FC. So he's hungry to score, and he's very talented. He's a big striker, tall, strong, being able to move, athletic. So we'll see. Ian Pilcher is expected to get a start there. Obviously, Chris McVeigh, who we talked about last week, very dependable center back, those two defenders going up against Austin FC's opposing center forward. So we'll see what that matchup looks like. But again, as we talked about earlier, Braden, I mean, we're looking at a team that could potentially go 5 games unbeaten. Obviously, we have a couple of home games to look forward to with the San Diego FC side. So if the San Diego FC can get a draw or a win on the road and coming back to Snapdragon a week later, that puts them into a really good position, and we really get a chance to start talking about how good this team can be down the stretch.
Drake, I appreciate the time you're coming out. Thanks again. Thanks to all of you for joining us today.
Appreciate
Dave
it. Thank you, Dave and Busters.
Coming up next, the Gwen and Chris Show, Matt Scraby, taking it to 6 o'clock, and then the Scraby Show from 6 to 7. I'm Braden Surprenant signing off on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks, guys.